Chapter 1939. Your Breaking Sun Pavilion's headquarters is no worse than this place. Is there any need to make such a fuss? Brother Ku narrowed his eyes, a faint light flashing across them as he looked at Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun, who were still in shock. Yang Kai turned his head and quickly said, "Like I said, we are not from Breaking Sun Pavilion and this is our first time here, believe it or not." Brother Ku nodded lightly and did not say anything more, simply standing on the deck with his hands behind his back, giving off an air of confidence. When they arrived above Blue Feather Sect, Brother Ku tapped his foot and the ship descended straight down. Down below, many cultivators who saw the ship approached, and after discovering that it was Brother Ku and the others, they all cupped their fists and greeted them. This Brother Ku seemed to have a lot of prestige in Blue Feather Sect, so many disciples knew him. There were also some people who were curiously looking at Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun, wondering how Brother Ku had managed to capture these two. Yang Kai vaguely heard them talking about Breaking Sun Pavilion and seemed to suspect that he and Liu Xianyun were spies for Breaking Sun Pavilion. Breaking Sun Pavilion and Blue Feather Sect definitely have some kind of grievance, Kai Yang concluded in his heart. At the same time, he and Liu Xianyun were also secretly looking around at the cultivator and were immediately taken aback. There were about 70 to 80 cultivators gathered around them, and of these 70 to 80, more than half were Origin King Realm cultivators. There were even a dozen third-order Origin Kings, and Yang Kai felt that they were even stronger than Yin Lesheng. In a one-on-one fight, if not for the Dao Source Grade artifact, the Underworld Dark Territory Shield, Yang Kai was 100% certain that Yin Lesheng would not be their opponent. Through the information he had obtained from Liu Xianyun before, Yang Kai quickly understood. These dozen people should have successfully transformed all their Saint Qi into Source Qi, but the reason they had not been able to break through to the Dao Source realm was because their comprehension of principal strength was not enough. This had become a barrier to their breakthrough. This barrier was the huge gap between the Dao Source realm and the Origin King realm, and the most basic reason why Brother Ku could command such awe. This was the first sect Yang Kai encountered after arriving in the star boundary, and what he saw shocked him greatly. Several dozen Origin Kings gathered together. This was something unimaginable for a cultivator in Star's territory. In Star, Origin territory. Not to mention those old masters, even First-Order Origin Kings were lofty existences that ordinary cultivators rarely seen. But here, they were like weeds in the fields. They were everywhere. But, young, they were, or even, the Emperor, Realm, and Realm, Origin Realm cultivators, or even to the Realm, or even to that point, to mention to, the Emperor Realm, of the 70 to 80 people, more than half were Origin Kings. There were also Origin Returning Realm cultivators and Saint King Realm cultivators, but the lower the realm of a cultivator, the fewer there were. In the star boundary, the strength of a cultivator was not something that could be achieved overnight. Although the cultivation environment here was countless times better than in star territory, a cultivator's cultivation and strength always increased bit by bit. Even in the star boundary, the cultivators here cultivated from the bottom up bit by bit. Saint Kings would appear. Origin Returning Realm cultivators were naturally not surprising. Just as Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun were secretly shocked, Brother Ku pointed to a cultivator who had been following him and said, "Kui Jing, send these two to the bone prison, I'll report to Protector Bian. Let's see how to deal with them." Send them to the bone prison? The cultivator named Kui Jing was a little stunned when he heard this. It seemed that Brother Ku's treatment of Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun was a little unexpected. However, he didn't ask any questions and simply nodded, yes. Saying so, he beckoned to Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun and said coldly, "Come down, how long do you want to stay on this ship?" Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun sighed helplessly and could only jump off the ship. "Follow me," Kui Jing said and led the way. Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun followed silently. Both of them knew that it was useless to explain anything now. Since Brother Ku didn't trust them from the beginning, he definitely wouldn't trust them now, so they could only take things as they came. Fortunately, although the two of them had their strength sealed, they didn't suffer any injuries. Along the way, they seemed to be heading towards a mountain peak. Halfway there, Yang Kai asked tentatively, "Dare I ask this friend, where is the bone prison?" Kui Jing turned around and glanced at Yang Kai with a sneer, snorting, "Who's your friend?" Yang Kai's brow furrowed as he cupped his fists and said, "This one has offended you. May I ask if this senior brother can explain to the two of us what this bone prison is?" Yang Kai's attitude made Kui Jing very satisfied, so he put on a kind face and said lightly, "You know from the name, it's naturally a place where people are imprisoned. Over there, heh, you'll know when you get there." A series of low chuckles caused Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun's expressions to change slightly, subconsciously feeling that this bone prison was definitely not a good place to go. The bone prison was indeed located at the foot of a mountain peak, and there were Blue Feather sect disciples guarding it. After Kui Jing handed over Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun to the disciples here, he left directly, not even sparing a glance at Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun. This disciple was also a third-order origin king cultivator, and his aura was extremely vigorous and deep, making him look extremely difficult to deal with. After Kui Jing left, this disciple squinted his eyes and looked Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun up and down, curling his lips as he muttered, "Damn, that Kui Jing bastard, every time he captures someone, he takes away their space rings, causing Father here to have nothing to drink." After muttering to himself for a while, this disciple turned to Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun and said, "Stop pretending, hand over the rest of your things." "What things?" Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun were stunned. "The artifacts you refined in your body. Don't tell me even those things were taken away by Kui Jing," the Blue Feather sect disciple sneered. As soon as this statement came out, not only did Liu Xianyun's pretty face change slightly, but Yang Kai's face also became ugly. It was common knowledge that a cultivator could refine artifacts in their body and summon them whenever they needed to. Previously, Brother Ku and the others had only asked Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun to hand over their space rings, not the artifacts they refined in their bodies, so they hadn't been too ruthless. But as soon as they arrived at the bone prison, the cultivator guarding this place actually asked them to hand over the artifacts they refined in their bodies, so the two's expressions naturally became ugly. Artifacts that could be refined in a cultivator's body were obviously the best artifacts the cultivator possessed and were the most frequently used artifacts. They were connected to the cultivator's mind and soul, so if they were destroyed or taken away, the cultivator's mind would definitely be damaged. Comparing this person's request to what Brother Ku and the others had done before, Yang Kai suddenly felt that Brother Ku and the others were being kind. However, Yang Kai only refined 3 artifacts in his body. The Verdant Dragon Bone Sword, the Annihilation Thunder Bead, and the Sealed World Bead were the only 2 Emperor artifacts he had refined in his body. No matter which of these 3 were, it was impossible for him to hand them over. Although he didn't know what Liu Xianyun's natal artifact was, she obviously wouldn't give in so easily. However, the other party seemed to have expected this, and seeing Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun remain silent for a long time, he sneered and said, "Do you want me to use force? If you don't want to hand over this woman, I, Yang Xiuran, am not a man who doesn't know how to be gentle with women, heh." Speaking of this, he let out a series of obscene laughter. How could Liu Xianyun not know what he was thinking? She immediately hid behind Yang Kai without a trace. Yang Xiuran's expression became cold as he narrowed his eyes at Yang Kai and said, "I can refuse to hand over this woman, but you can't." "I don't have any artifacts in my body," Yang Kai quickly said. Yang Xiuran coldly snorted, "Who do you think you're trying to fool? Since you're so stubborn, don't blame me for not giving you face." Saying so, he suddenly pulled off a bag that had been hanging from his waist. The pouch looked small and exquisite, and no one knew what was inside. It was bulging, and it seemed to be a living thing that was constantly wriggling. Yang Xiuran sneered, opened the bag, and poured out something from it. After seeing what this thing was, Liu Xianyun couldn't help crying out in alarm, her pretty face going pale. This thing was actually a small snake, but it was somewhat different from ordinary snakes. It was snow-white in color and looked flawless, as if it had been carved from fine jade. With Yang Kai's knowledge and experience, he couldn't recognize the name of this small snake-like spirit beast or what its purpose was, but Yang Xiuran taking out this monster beast at this time obviously had something to do with snatching the cultivator's natal artifact. Yang Xiuran undoubtedly attached great importance to this spirit snake, so he took it out very carefully. Immediately, he stretched out his hand and grabbed Yang Kai in front of him, grinning fiercely as he said, "Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, don't cry out in pain later." As soon as these words fell, Yang Xiuran's hand shook slightly and the white spirit snake shot towards Yang Kai like an arrow, piercing the skin on the back of his hand. A strange scene occurred. The white spirit snake bit through Yang Kai's skin and, like smoke, drilled into Yang Kai's body through the wound, shuttling through his meridians and flesh. In an instant, Yang Kai's body trembled violently as an unbearable pain spread from his muscles and meridians, causing his face to become extremely red. If it weren't for his strong willpower, Yang Kai would have screamed miserably already. "Brother Yang," Liu Xianyun called out, fearing that Yang Kai would suffer some kind of accident. Yang Kai let out a low roar from his throat, like a wounded beast, his scarlet eyes staring straight at Yang Xiuran in front of him. Yang Xiuran didn't show any fear and simply laughed. "Don't worry, you won't die. This treasure-seizing snake of mine doesn't have any other skills, it only knows how to snatch the artifacts refined by others. After it takes away the artifacts, you will naturally recover." Sure enough, Yang Kai felt a bad premonition. The purpose of this spirit snake was exactly as he had guessed before, a strange existence that could wantonly snatch artifacts from others. For a time, his heart sank to the bottom. Chapter 1940. The 3 artifacts that Yang Kai had nurtured and refined in his body couldn't be easily shown to others. Even in the star boundary, these 3 artifacts were existences that could cause a reign of terror. Needless to say, the Emperor artifact and Emperor beads were treasures passed down by Yang and another Emperor realm master. They were of extremely high grade and powerful enough to make any cultivator below the Emperor realm fight for them. Even those in the Emperor realm would covet them. Although the verdant dragon bone sword's grade was not high, that was because Yang Kai had not completely refined it into a real artifact, so the dragon bone sword was basically a semi-finished product. Its main materials were the spine of a true dragon and the dragon bead. This was the body artifact of an ancient true dragon and was on the same level as the dragon scale Yang Kai had fused with. In terms of value, even if it was not as good as a top emperor artifact, it was not far behind. Therefore, as soon as the treasure-seizing snake entered his body, Yang Kai felt something was wrong. No matter which of these 3 artifacts was taken away, Yang Kai could not bear it, but now that his strength was sealed, he could only silently endure the pain caused by the treasure-seizing snake's rampage through his body, unable to resist. What's more, even if he was restored to his peak, he may not be Yang Xiuran's opponent. Yang Xiuran sneered to the side, his eyes filled with cold expectation. Obviously, this was not the first time he had done such a thing. Grinning fiercely as he said, "It's not too late for you to regret now. If you don't want to suffer, just cooperate obediently. You should know that although artifacts are precious, without your life, you can't use them no matter how many you have." Yang Kai stared at him coldly without saying a word, his eyes filled with hatred. It was as if he wanted to carve the appearance of this person into the depths of his bones. Yang Xiuran curled his lips and said, "Stubborn, since that's the case, don't blame me." Saying so, he stretched out his hand and formed a seal. The treasure-seizing snake, which was already rampaging through Yang Kai's body, became even more ferocious. Yang Kai's screams rang out. All of a sudden, a voice was heard. He could clearly feel the trajectory of the treasure-snatching snake in his body. He did not know what kind of talent this monster beast had. It had an unimaginable sense of smell and tracking ability when it came to finding secret treasures refined in the cultivator's body. It seemed that any secret treasure that was hidden could not escape its detection. It quickly found the location of the dragon bone sword. It went straight in that direction. Yang Kai endured the pain, large beads of sweat rolling down his forehead. He wanted to control the dragon bone sword to dodge, but he was unable to do so. It didn't take long for the treasure-seizing snake to reach the dragon bone sword. Without even looking at it, it opened its mouth wide, as if it were about to swallow the sword and take it by force. If it succeeded, Yang Kai's losses were huge. However, something unexpected happened. The treasure-seizing snake had only completed half of its swallowing action when it suddenly retreated in panic, as if it had been frightened by something. He avoided the dragonbone sword in a straight line. At that moment, Yang Kai clearly felt a faint dragon aura emanating from the dragonbone sword, and it was embedded in the dragon pearl where the dragonbone sword was. The dragon soul slowly opened its eyes and glanced at the treasure-seizing snake. It was this dragon aura and the dragon soul's glance that scared the treasure-seizing snake away. Yang Kai was overjoyed. He only needed to think for a moment to understand why such a thing happened. It was not that the dragon bone sword's grade was too high, but the dragon bone sword's dragon aura and the remnant dragon soul had a natural restraining and deterring ability for the treasure-seizing snake. It was not surprising. True dragons were ancient divine spirits. It was rumored that flood dragons, pythons, and snakes were all transformed from true dragons after countless generations of dilution. Naturally, they had a natural restraining power against these three creatures. The treasure-seizing snake was also a kind of snake. How could it dare to be presumptuous in front of the old ancestor's aura, so it immediately retreated far away. Chem. Yang Xiuran, who had been observing, could not help but frown. He did not know what had happened to his treasure-seizing snake. The treasure-seizing snake had failed to immediately seize the other party's artifact. In the past, as long as his treasure-seizing snake moved, it would not take more than 10 breaths. It would be able to snatch the artifacts of others easily, but today, something seemed to have happened. Yang Xiuran could not help glancing at Yang Kai meaningfully, but he did not care too much and continued to wait. The treasure-seizing snake did not dare to swallow the dragon bone sword and could only look for other artifacts. Its next target was the Annihilation Thunder Bead. The Annihilation Thunder Bead naturally didn't have the dragon's might to deter it, but the Annihilation Divine Lightning within it wasn't something that the treasure-seizing snake dared to provoke. Thus, it merely circled around the Annihilation Thunder Bead before leaving dejectedly. With the treasure-seizing snake's ability, it did not dare to touch an Emperor artifact like the Annihilation Thunder Bead. The only result of forcibly snatching it was being turned to ashes by the Annihilation Divine Thunder. The treasure-seizing snake was also somewhat intelligent and knew how to seek benefits and avoid disaster. Soon, it arrived in front of the sealed world bead. Seemingly because of the experience it had gained from the dragon bone sword and the Annihilation Thunder Bead, the treasure-seizing snake did not rush to swallow the sealed world bead this time and instead wandered nearby, carefully observing. After determining that the sealed world bead did not sense any danger, the treasure-seizing snake opened its mouth and swallowed the sealed world bead before attempting to withdraw from Yang Kai's body. But it was already too late. The moment the sealed world bead entered its stomach, a surge of world force erupted in its abdomen. In an instant, a large hole appeared in the treasure-seizing snake's abdomen and it hissed as it fled in panic. The sealed world bead was a world of its own, and Yang Kai had only been able to absorb it into his body because he had refined it before. Swallowing the treasure-seizing snake was equivalent to swallowing an entire world. With its ability, how could it possibly bear such a thing? It was already lucky that it did not explode on the spot. The treasure-seizing snake finally discovered that everything in Yang Kai's body was not so easy to plunder. It still possessed a bit of intelligence, so after suffering such a heavy blow, how could it dare to stay? At the same time, Yang Xiuran's expression changed as he shouted, "What's going on?" He had some connection with the treasure-seizing snake, so the moment the treasure-seizing snake was injured, he was aware of it. In a panic, he quickly formed a seal with both hands, trying to urge the treasure-seizing snake to come out. Yang Kai endured the unbearable pain and suddenly took a few steps back. Xiao, from somewhere in his chest, a small blood-stained snake shot out, its forked tongue darting out, as if it had been wronged, and shot towards Yang Xiuran. On the abdomen of the little snake, there was a bloody hole, its internal organs exposed to the air, causing Yang Xiuran's heart to ache. But at this moment, Yang Kai did something that both Yang Xiuran and Liu Xianyun could not believe. Taking a step forward, Yang Kai stretched out his hand and grabbed the treasure-seizing snake in the palm of his hand. Pinching the snake's head, Yang Kai exerted a little force with his thumb and index finger and crushed the little snake's neck bone. Yang Kai's strength was indeed sealed, but his physical strength could not be sealed at all, so his actions were as quick as lightning. By the time Yang Xiuran reacted, the treasure-seizing snake had already died. Yang Kai grinned at him and then stuffed the little snake into his mouth and began to chew on it. Yang Kai's mouth was full of blood, making him look like a bloodthirsty beast, his scarlet eyes flashing with a terrifying light. "You!" Yang Xiuran was stunned. He did not expect things to develop to this point. Because Yang Kai's strength was sealed, Yang Xiuran did not expect the other party's speed to be so fast. By the time he wanted to rescue him, it was already too late. The treasure-seizing snake had already become Yang Kai's food. Liu Xianyun's tender body could not help trembling. She and Yang Kai were now grasshoppers on the same rope, and in her opinion, Yang Kai's actions were simply pushing them into a fiery pit. Did he not know that people under the eaves had no choice but to bow their heads? This is bad, this is bad. I really shouldn't have cooperated with this person. He looked quite steady before, so how could he make such a crazy move? Liu Xianyun's intestines turned green with regret as her face became extremely ugly. You court death. Yang Xiuran was furious as he took a step forward, his eyes turning red as he arrived in front of Yang Kai and sent out a fierce palm strike. Kong. How could Yang Kai block the violent blow of a third-order origin king in his current state? Thus, he was immediately sent flying like a ragged sack, crashing into the mountain wall several hundred feet behind him, creating a huge human-shaped crater on the mountain wall. The sound of bones breaking rang out. Yang Kai slid down the mountain wall. Brother Yang! Liu Xianyun exclaimed in horror. Although she did not understand why Yang Kai suddenly acted so crazily, seeing him being hit by a palm strike, she could not help calling out nervously. After all, she and Yang Kai both came from the territory of a low-level star and had some common interests. On the other hand, none of the Blue Feather Sect disciples were good people, so if Yang Kai died like this and she was the only one left, her fate would be miserable. She subconsciously did not want Yang Kai to die like this. However, she also knew that Yang Kai's chances of survival were not high. Just now, Yang Xiuran had not shown any mercy in his furious attack. Even if she had taken that blow, she would have died, let alone Yang Kai, a mere second-order origin king. Cough cough. A violent cough came from the mountain wall as Yang Kai struggled to stand up, spat out the treasure-seizing snake's flesh from his mouth, and swallowed the snake gall. Liu Xianyun's beautiful eyes widened as she stared at the disheveled yet arrogant Yang Kai like she was looking at a monster, her heart shaking wildly. He survived. How did he do it? He didn't die. Yang Xiuran was also stunned. His furious attack just now was intended to take Yang Kai's life directly to avenge his treasure-seizing snake. After all, although the treasure-seizing snake could not be used in battle, its ability to rob others of their innate divine technique and refine artifacts was already a precious treasure. Yang Xiuran had spent a lot of money to buy it from someone else, so now that it had died tragically at Yang Kai's hands, how could he let this go? So, after seeing that Yang Kai was not dead, Yang Xiuran's eyes suddenly became cold as he walked towards Yang Kai step by step, like an erupting volcano, his anger and powerful momentum surging towards Yang Kai. Chapter 1941. Yang Kai didn't show any fear and instead grinned. If you kill me, I'm afraid you won't be able to explain yourself. You're just a mere prisoner. What qualifications do you have to bargain with me? Even if I kill you, no one will care. Is that so? Yang Kai spat out a mouthful of blood. Brother Ku said that he was going to ask Protector Bien how to deal with us. Tell me, if Protector Bien learns that you killed me, what will happen to you? Hearing the words Protector Bien, Yang Xiuran's eyes flashed with a strong sense of dread and his anger seemed to have been splashed with a bucket of cold water, suddenly cooling down. I made the right bet. Seeing him like this, Yang Kai felt relieved. Judging from the behavior of the Blue Feather Sect disciples he had met, this sect did not seem to be a good one. The cultivator inside was also not a good person. Yang Kai guessed that the rules were extremely strict and once violated, he would be severely punished. That was why Yang Kai had used the name of Protector Bien, whom he had never met before, as a banner. Yang Xiuran was really shocked. As Yang Kai had said, if he killed Yang Kai before Protector Bien gave the order, it would definitely be overstepping his authority. If Protector Bien found out about this, even if he didn't die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. Therefore, he didn't dare to kill again. However, the treasure-seizing snake had been bitten to death by Yang Kai, so it was impossible for him to just give up, so Yang Xiuran only hesitated for a moment before walking towards Yang Kai fiercely and saying, "Little brat, you can rest assured that if Protector Bien wants you dead, I will personally send you on your way and allow you to live for a few days. Yang Kai heard this and curled his lips fiercely. But now, you can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment. Your physique seems to be quite extraordinary. I hope you can take this blow. As soon as these words fell, Yang Xiuran rushed in front of Yang Kai and condensed his burning anger and violent source qi into his fist before slamming it towards Yang Kai's abdomen. Hong. Yang Kai felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His entire body was curled up like a shrimp, twitching in pain. But before that, he had already spat out a mouthful of blood. Like a storm, it sprayed towards Yang Xiuran. Caught off guard, the latter's face was covered in dirt. After being provoked again and again, how could he endure it? Almost instinctively, he lifted his leg and swept it wildly at Yang Kai's neck. The next moment, Yang Kai flew out and fell to the ground, motionless. From the looks of it, he seemed to have fainted. You're lucky. Yang Xiuran coldly snorted, turned his head, and glared fiercely at Liu Xianyun before shouting, "Drag him over and follow me." Now that the treasure-seizing snake was dead, even if Yang Xiuran wanted to snatch Liu Xianyun's artifact, it would be impossible for him to do so, so he could only lock them up in the bone prison before torturing them. Liu Xianyun heard this. Quickly trotting over to Yang Kai's side, she stretched out her finger to check his pulse, and after confirming that he was still alive, she couldn't help breathing a sigh of relief. Thinking about it for a moment, Liu Xianyun stretched out her hand, picked up Yang Kai, and then carried him on her back. Following closely behind Yang Xiuran, they walked into the cave at the foot of the mountain in front of them. Suddenly, a gloomy feeling lingered all over her body, causing Liu Xianyun to subconsciously shrink her neck. Inside the mountain, vaguely, there was a burst of tragic screams echoing in the air. Just listening to it made one's hair stand on end. Yang Xiuran led the way in front and sneered as he walked, "Only a few people can come out alive after entering the bone prison. If you don't want to suffer any inhumane treatment, give me your artifact as soon as possible. Hand over the artifact to me as soon as possible and I'll let them give you a quick death. Otherwise, you'll know what it means to live a life worse than death." Liu Xianyun's pretty face turned pale as her tender body trembled slightly, biting her bloodless lips, not uttering a single word. The deeper they went, the darker and more humid the environment became, and an unpleasant stench filled the air, causing Liu Xianyun to frown involuntarily. All the way down, they seemed to have penetrated 1,000 meters before arriving at a dungeon-like place. The cells were divided into many different sections and seemed to be made from the bones of some monster beast, making them extremely sturdy. Inside the dim cells, a pair of scarlet eyes stared at Yang Xiuran and the others like wild beasts, causing Liu Xianyun's hair to stand on end. Kill me, I beg you to kill me." A miserable howl came from somewhere, an extreme thirst for death. Liu Xianyun really couldn't imagine what kind of torment this person had endured to make him want to die so badly. But in this place, death was obviously an extravagant hope, and the sound soon turned into an extremely mournful howl. Liu Xianyun's cheeks were pale and bloodless as she felt that this might be her fate in the future, causing her to suddenly feel sad. "Get in." Yang Xiuran suddenly stopped in front of a cell, opened the door, and motioned to Liu Xianyun. Liu Xianyun didn't dare to disobey and could only carry Yang Kai into the cell. Yang Xiuran closed the cell again before sneering, reaching out and patting the bone bars, saying gloomily, "2 newcomers have arrived, take good care of them." Saying so, he turned around and left. At the same time, in the originally silent cell, several scarlet eyes suddenly lit up. Liu Xianyun was taken aback. Only now did she realize that there were actually 4 people imprisoned in this cell, something she hadn't noticed when she first came in. "Her! A woman!" Suddenly, a cry of surprise rang out, and the cultivator who was originally imprisoned here sniffed lightly, apparently smelling the faint fragrance coming from Liu Xianyun's body, causing him to suddenly become excited. "A woman actually came? Ha 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 ha. Our brothers are in luck." Someone immediately laughed. When these words were spread out, it immediately caused a commotion in the next cell. Countless prisoners crowded to the side of the fence and looked at the place where Liu Xianyun was with great interest. They constantly let out obscene laughter, as if they were looking forward to something. Liu Xianyun's face sank as she quickly retreated to the innermost position, leaning against the wall behind her as she stared ahead vigilantly. Inside the cell, a tall and sturdy man slowly stood up. This man was at least 20 feet tall, and his huge body gave people a strong sense of oppression. Although the power in his body was also sealed, his whole body still emitted a ferocious aura like that of a wild beast. "This woman is mine," the burly man said lightly, but there was an irresistible majesty in his voice. The other three men hesitated for a moment before one of them said flatteringly, "Since seventh brother Zong has spoken, we brothers will naturally give him some face, but after seventh brother Zong is done with her, ha. After that, do as you please," seventh brother Zong said coldly. "Many thanks, seventh brother Zong." The three men quickly thanked him and took the initiative to step back with lewd smiles on their faces, waiting for the show to begin. The burly man named seventh brother Zong stared at Liu Xianyun, and it seemed that it was only now that he was able to clearly see Liu Xianyun's appearance with the help of the dim light, and he couldn't help nodding. "Good, she's actually a top-grade woman. These bastards from Blue Feather Sect have finally done something good. What do you want to do?" Liu Xianyun calmly stared at seventh brother Zong and asked. She did not panic because of this, because she knew that in this kind of place, it was useless to reason. Only strength had the right to speak. Now that everyone's strength was sealed, they could only rely on their physical strength. Looking at the iron-like body of seventh brother Zong, Liu Xianyun felt immense pressure. "Don't you know what I want to do?" Seventh brother Zong coldly snorted, not putting the petite Liu Xianyun in his eyes at all. "If you don't want to suffer, just obediently enjoy it." Ha. Seventh brother Zong's words are really interesting. "That's right, little girl, I advise you not to provoke seventh brother Zong. He has very high attainments in the body refinement technique. With your small body, you can't possibly be his opponent. If you can't resist, then obediently enjoy it. Are you afraid that seventh brother Zong won't satisfy you?" Disgusting, despicable. Liu Xianyun ground her teeth and cursed. "Ha, if you curse him like that, you'll only stimulate his bestial desires. It's better if you don't make a sound." Suddenly, Yang Kai's voice came from behind. Liu Xianyun was startled at first, but immediately became happy and called out, "You're awake?" "Oh, I didn't faint," Yang Kai said, taking the initiative to jump down from Liu Xianyun's back, stretching out his hand and rubbing his forehead and abdomen, grimacing. "That bastard was really heavy-handed, I was almost crippled by him. Damn, I'll make him pay for it later." Liu Xianyun stared blankly at Yang Kai, completely shocked by his words that he wasn't unconscious. This person, what kind of freak is he? Yang Xiurant's attack wasn't even qualified to knock him unconscious, so just how strong was his endurance? In a daze, she even forgot about the dangerous situation she was in. "Oh, you have a lover." Zong Qi stood 10 meters away from Yang Kai, looking down at him condescendingly, his eyes filled with disdain and ridicule. "Haha, this friend must be joking. I and this girl are just friends," Yang Kai explained. Zong Qi coldly snorted, "Whether you are her friend or lover, I'll warn you, if you don't want to die, scram. You're very arrogant." Yang Kai looked up at the burly man in front of him and narrowed his eyes. "Since that's the case, I'll also warn you, if you don't want to die, scram." The same words were returned to him verbatim. The prison cell suddenly fell silent. The other three men hiding in the darkness stared at Yang Kai with their mouths wide open, as if they were looking at a dead man. Suddenly, one of them reacted and shouted, "Not good, quickly retreat. Boss Zong is very terrifying when he is angry." The other two men also shivered, a look of panic appearing in their eyes, as if recalling something bad. They also hurriedly retreated to the outermost edge. Only then did Zong Qi let out a cold laugh. "You're very interesting, but angering me won't do you any good. I'll give you a chance to live. Kneel in front of me and lick my shoes clean and I'll spare you. Otherwise, next year today will be the anniversary of your death." Chapter 1942. Fuck. Yang Kai couldn't help cursing, clearly in a bad mood. Since entering the Starlight Corridor, it seemed that none of the people he had met were easy to deal with. First, he met Yin Lesheng, who attacked him for no reason. Then he met Big Brother Ku, who captured him and brought him to Blue Feather Sect for no reason. Then he met Yang Xiuran in front of the bone prison, who tried to snatch his artifact for no reason, and then there was this burly man. Yang Kai suddenly realized that he had only been in the star boundary for a short time, but all he had encountered were some unpleasant memories. Were the people of the star boundary all so fierce and aggressive? Or was he just unlucky? No matter what the reason was, Yang Kai couldn't bear it any longer. The repeated encounters made the anger in his heart surge like a volcano, ready to erupt at any moment. Zhongqi's provocation and shameless boasting were obviously a fuse that completely ignited the anger in Yang Kai's heart. So after hearing Zhongqi's threat, Yang Kai was not only not afraid, he even asked with interest, "Listening to what you mean, it doesn't seem to matter if someone dies here?" Zhongqi sneered, "This is Blue Feather Sect's bone prison. What does it matter if a few people die here and there?" "Understood." Yang Kai gently nodded before suddenly raising his head and grinning, revealing his white fangs as he gloomily declared, "Then you're out of luck." As soon as his voice fell, he rushed in front of Zhongqi, took a step forward, assumed a melee stance, and threw out a straight punch. This punch seemed to contain all of the dissatisfaction and anger that Kai Yang had suffered recently, and its momentum was like a rainbow. It was as fast as thunder. Zhongqi was tall and burly, and he had extremely high attainments in body tempering, so he didn't put Yang Kai's attack in his eyes at all. He just sneered, "Interesting, someone actually dares to provoke this Zhong, I'll crush all your bones as punishment." Saying so, he also threw out a straight punch. It met Yang Kai's fist head-on. When the two fists collided, the cold expression on Yang Kai's face turned into a sinister smile. Zhongqi's disdain suddenly turned into astonishment, and then horror. With a cry of alarm, Zhongqi's towering body was sent flying backwards, and in mid-air, the crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard. Bang! Zhongqi's body slammed into the bone bars of the bone prison and fell heavily to the ground. Before he could get up, Yang Kai had already leaped out like a fierce tiger, riding on his body. His fists turned into a storm of attacks, raining down like raindrops. Bang bang bang, within the small bone prison, waves of continuous rumbling sounds came out like war drums, shaking people's hearts. Inside the bone prison, the three people who were originally prepared to watch a good show were now dumbfounded. Their eyes widened as they looked at the scene not far away. Liu Xianyun was also dumbfounded. While she was shocked, she also felt a trace of excitement. In this kind of place, the stronger Yang Kai was, the safer she would be. In any case, she and Yang Kai were now allies on the same side. In the other cells, there were also bursts of screams and shouts. The cultivator imprisoned here had been tortured all year round. Their ferocity had been honed to the bone. What they were most happy to see was this kind of bloody struggle. It was also a kind of pleasure for them to pass the time. Asterisk bang bang bang, asterisk the muffled sounds continued to ring out, accompanied by a faint splash of red blood mixed with the sound of breaking bones. The commotion in the cell alerted the guards. Soon, two Blue Feather Sect disciples came to investigate. After discovering that it was Yang Kai, who had just been imprisoned, who was showing off his strength, they just sneered and showed no intention of stopping him. Instead, they stood in place and watched for a while before leaving. Zhongqi was right. In this Blue Feather Sect's bone prison, what did it matter if a few people died? As such, the Blue Feather Sect guards did not try to stop him at all. As time passed, Zhongqi, who had been pinned to the ground by Yang Kai, began to howl miserably as he cursed out loud, but soon, he no longer had the strength to do so, only moaning and begging for mercy remained. Yang Kai was like a mad beast, ignoring him completely. In the end, Zhongqi didn't even groan. By the time Yang Kai stopped and stood up, Zhongqi's whole body was lying there like a puddle of mud, covered in blood and broken bones, clearly dead. Shaking off the blood on his hands, Kai Yang let out a long sigh of relief. Immediately, he felt refreshed, and the depression he had been suppressing in his heart had disappeared in a flash. Seeing Yang Kai stand up, the other three people in the cell all retreated to the corner in horror, staring at him with trembling eyes, fearing that Yang Kai would kill them all. They knew Zhongqi's ability very well. Under the premise that everyone's strength was sealed, in this bone prison, whoever had the strongest physique would have the advantage. All three of them had suffered at Zhongqi's hands before, so even if they joined forces, they were definitely not his opponent. However, this newcomer had actually beaten Zhongqi to the point where he couldn't even fight back. It was easy to imagine how strong his physique was. How could they not be afraid? Fortunately, Kai Yang didn't have any intention of attacking again. Instead, he walked straight to the corner of the room and sat down cross-legged. This made the three of them sigh in relief. They felt as if they had just escaped from death's door. Liu Xianyun also didn't disturb Yang Kai, knowing that his mood was unstable at the moment, so she simply sat down cross-legged near Yang Kai to restore her strength. After an unknown amount of time, the door of the cell suddenly opened. The two Blue Feather sect guards who had been here before stood at the door with cold faces and beckoned to Yang Kai. "Little brat, get out here." Yang Kai raised his eyes to look at them before standing up slowly. Liu Xianyun tugged at his clothes from behind with a worried look on her face. Yang Kai smiled lightly. "Don't worry, I'll be back soon. They won't dare to kill me." As long as Protector Bien, who he had never met, didn't say how to deal with him, these Blue Feather sect people wouldn't dare act recklessly. For this alone, Yang Kai felt that he should thank Protector Bien. After saying so, Yang Kai turned his head to look at the other three men in the cell and sneered, "If you don't want to die, don't move. If I come back and find that my companion has suffered any harm, you know what the consequences will be." The three men had long been deterred by Yang Kai's ferocity. Zhongqi's body was still lying in place, untouched, so how could they dare to say anything? All of them nodded their heads like chickens pecking at rice. "Dilly-dallying, do you want to die? Get out here quickly," the guard at the door urged impatiently. Yang Kai curled his lips and walked out. Outside, the two guards looked Yang Kai up and down, one of them sneering, "I heard you made Brother Yang suffer a big loss. Boy, you're quite capable, killing Zhongqi on your first day here. He's not a guy to be trifled with. For this alone, our brother admires you. However, Brother Yang told us to take good care of you, so don't blame anyone. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for having eyes but failing to see and provoking someone you shouldn't have." With the two of them speaking one after another, Kai Yang quickly understood the whole story. He didn't say much and just motioned for the two to lead the way. The two guards glanced at each other and couldn't help giving Yang Kai a thumbs up, smiling meaningfully, "You've got gut." Soon, Yang Kai was taken to a dark cell. Inside, he was tied up and the two Blue Feather sect disciples were using all kinds of torture on him. It wasn't until half a day later that the dying Yang Kai was thrown back into his cell. After seeing Yang Kai's miserable appearance, Liu Xianyun was almost scared silly, thinking that Yang Kai would soon die. If Yang Kai died, she would fall into a state of isolation and helplessness. In this kind of place, the fate that awaited her could be imagined. But what she never expected was that Yang Kai, who seemed to be on the verge of death, actually sat up cross-legged an hour later and assumed a meditative posture. On the second day, Yang Kai was full of energy again. Although he looked a little distressed, his injuries didn't seem to be too serious. Even the scars on his body had disappeared, and the blood clots on his body had all fallen off, revealing new skin. Liu Xianyun found that she was becoming more and more unable to see through Yang Kai and instinctively realized that this person was hiding some unimaginable secret. Over the next few days, this was the case. Every day, Yang Kai had to endure the torture of the two Blue Feather sect guards before being thrown back into his cell half-dead and forced to meditate to recover. As time passed, Liu Xianyun was shocked to discover that Yang Kai's body seemed to be changing little by little, becoming stronger and stronger. Inside his body, which had been sealed, there seemed to be an unimaginable surge of power. Once the seal was lifted, this power was bound to be fully unleashed. In fact, this was indeed the case. The torture of the two Blue Feather sect guards allowed the Starlight Yang Kai absorbed in the Starlight Corridor to quickly integrate into his body, promoting the transformation of his Saint Qi into Source Qi. Yang Kai had absorbed an unimaginable amount of starlight in the Starlight Corridor, and some of it had been integrated into his body as a catalyst to transform the strength in his body, but most of it had been hidden in his knowledge sea. This was why he, as a Star Master, did not have the light of stars on his body. Under normal circumstances, Yang Kai could guide the starlight from his knowledge sea and integrate it into his body to promote the transformation of his strength. But now that his strength was sealed, he could not guide it at all. On the contrary, the torture of the two Blue Feather Sect guards allowed him to see a glimmer of hope. When his body was destroyed and in the process of repairing itself, the power of the starlight actively poured out of his knowledge sea and into his body, forcibly transforming his Saint Chi into Source Chi. After discovering this, Yang Kai could not help feeling overjoyed. So in the face of the torture of the two guards, not only did he not feel uncomfortable, he actually enjoyed it, hoping they would torture him as miserably as possible. Chapter 1943. Time flew by and soon, 10 days had passed. Yang Kai woke up from his meditation and silently sensed his physical condition before shaking his head in dissatisfaction. Too slow, the rate at which the Saint Chi in his body was transforming made him somewhat dissatisfied. As an Origin King realm cultivator, the purer the Source Chi in one's body, the more power one could display. At this moment, only a little more than 1/5 of the Saint Chi in Yang Kai's body had been transformed into Source Chi. At this rate, it would take at least 1 or 2 hours to completely transform the Saint Chi in his body. Seeing him open his eyes, the 3 prisoners in the cell all showed flattering smiles, but no one dared to speak. Yang Kai's ferocious and valiant image had been deeply ingrained in their bones. In this place, it would be easy for Yang Kai to take their lives. Life and death were not in their control, so how could they not flatter Yang Kai? Even Liu Xian Yun had been flattered by these 3 over the past few days. Although Yang Kai looked down on these 3 fellows who bullied the weak and feared the strong, he still inquired about some information from them during their usual chats. There was all kinds of information about Blue Feather Sect and the Star Boundary. As Yang Kai expected, Blue Feather Sect was not a good sect, but it was not an evil sect either. It was just that the disciples of the sect were somewhat unscrupulous. There was also Daybreak Pavilion nearby, which often had friction with Blue Feather Sect, but the strength of the two could be said to be on par. Not to mention Blue Feather Sect, the entire Star Boundary was divided into 4 territories: North, South, East, and West. Each territory occupied an endless amount of land, and even a Dao Source Realm Master would not be able to cross it in their lifetime. It was possible that even a Dao Source Realm Master might not be able to cross a large territory, which showed just how vast the Star Boundary was. Under each domain, there were countless provinces. As for Blue Feather Sect, it was a sect located in the southern territory of the Star Boundary, Qi Province. Qi Province covered an area of 80 million kilometers and was basically unranked in the entire southern territory, whether it was in terms of the number of masters, comprehensive strength, or area. This was the case. And in a place like Qi Province, there were countless existences like Blue Feather Sect. This information made Yang Kai feel the grandeur of the Star Boundary. This was definitely a world much vaster than the territory of the Star Boundary. The few words revealed by the 3 of them were like an epic painting slowly unfolding in front of Yang Kai, filling him with longing for the vaster sky. However, these 3 were not Master Realm Masters, just First-Order Origin King Cultivator. They hadn't even left Qi Province, so they weren't clear about the situation in the outside world. However, this information was enough for Yang Kai to digest for a long time. At this moment, he was frowning as he inspected the changes in the energy in his body. Suddenly, Kai Yang raised his head and furrowed his brow. Heh. Brat, you're indeed a little unusual. You can actually detect this old man's divine sense. A voice suddenly sounded in Yang Kai's ears. It was indiscernible and traceless, making one unable to grasp it. Yang Kai remained calm and collected as he looked around, but didn't see any flaws in the people being held in the nearby cells. Don't bother looking, this old man is locked in the innermost layer, you can't see him, the voice sounded again. After being locked up here for more than 10 days, Yang Kai also knew that the more powerful a cultivator was, the deeper they would be locked up. The owner of this voice who suddenly spoke said he was locked in the innermost layer, so his strength was definitely not low. He was likely a Dao Source Realm Master. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to hide from others and send a divine sense message to Yang Kai. Yang Kai pondered for a moment before asking, "Who is senior? Do you need something from me?" "Naturally, there's something, and it's a good thing," the voice laughed. It was somewhat uncomfortable to hear. "Ever since you came in and killed Zhong Qi, This old master began to pay attention to you. If this old master is not mistaken, you've cultivated some extremely profound body tempering technique, yes? So what? Yang Kai frowned but did not try to deny it. Since others had been paying attention to him, there was no way he could hide the situation of his body. If that's the case, this old master wants to ask you for a favor. Senior, please speak frankly. Release this old master, the owner of the voice said. Yang Kai could not help sneering. Senior must be joking. This junior is just a prisoner now. How could he possibly have the ability to release you? Since this old master has said so, naturally he has a way. The man coldly snorted. I can teach you a secret technique that will allow you to undo the seal on your body and restore your strength. With your ability, as long as you can restore your strength, no one in this bone prison will be able to stop you. At that time, it will be easy for you to release this old master. Hearing this, Yang Kai could not help but light up. The man continued, you don't want your fate to be held in the hands of others, right? This old master's secret technique can definitely allow you to undo the seal on your body. These words were low but contained an irresistible force, causing Yang Kai to almost agree, but in the next moment, he was startled and realized that something was wrong. The person in his mind must have used some kind of secret technique to affect his thoughts, so he could not help coldly snorting and saying, Senior using this kind of trick to deal with Junior, isn't it a bit inappropriate? The voice laughed loudly, boy, you're strong, this old master was wrong. How about this old master apologize to you? Seeing him readily apologize and admit his mistake, Yang Kai was speechless for a moment. After a moment of silence, Yang Kai said, since you have a secret technique to restore your strength, why don't you use it yourself? Instead, you want to borrow my hand? The voice replied, if I could use it myself, why would I need you? Not only is this old master's strength sealed, but his joints are also locked by those bastards' chains made of spirit-suppressing gold. I can't use any secret technique at all. What's more, even if I were to restore my strength, with these spirit-suppressing gold chains, I wouldn't be able to use any of it. So that's how it is. Yang Kai showed a look of understanding. Although he had never heard of spirit-suppressing gold before, from the information revealed by this man's words, Yang Kai could determine that this thing was definitely a nemesis of Source Chi. Otherwise, a Dao Source Realm Master would not be imprisoned here and unable to escape. Let me ask you one more thing. There are so many cultivator in this bone prison, so why did Senior choose me? With your eyesight, it shouldn't be difficult to tell that my strength isn't high, right? Yang Kai asked cautiously. This old master naturally knows what level you are at. There are many people in this bone prison who are stronger than you. However, spirit-suppressing gold is not afraid of Source Chi and can only be destroyed by brute force. This old master thinks you are quite suitable. Hearing what he said, Yang Kai understood why this man had asked him if he had cultivated some kind of profound body tempering technique from the beginning. It turned out that it was because of the existence of spirit-suppressing gold. Yang Kai's mind couldn't help becoming active. Although he didn't know who the person talking to him was or how strong he was still imprisoned here and didn't know what his fate would be tomorrow. If Protector Bien gave the order to kill him, Yang Kai believed Yang Xiuran would be more than happy to send him on his way. If he could really obtain the secret technique to unlock this seal from this person, then he would still have the strength to fight back and not be placed on the chopping block like a fish on a fish. As for whether or not he would rescue this person when the time came, that would depend on his mood. Seeing Yang Kai fall into contemplation, the man quickly struck while the iron was hot and said, this old master won't hide it from you. This old master has the cultivation of the third order Dao Source realm and is only a step away from the Emperor realm. If you can save this old master will be sure to thank you. The third order Dao Source realm. Yang Kai was shocked. Brother Ku he had encountered before was only in the first order Dao Source realm, yet he had already made Yang Kai feel like he was no match for him. If he was in the third order Dao Source realm, he could easily kill him. Before knowing what kind of temperament this man had, Yang Kai didn't dare to agree rashly, lest he end up losing the rice he had used to steal a chicken and end up worse off. I know what you are worried about, but you can rest assured that this old master always keeps his word and will not deceive you. If you feel that this is inappropriate, This old master can make a soul oath. Yang Kai frowned, pondered for a moment, and said, "This junior can feel senior's sincerity, but this matter, let me think about it first before giving an answer." "No rush, think about it carefully." The man smiled meaningfully, not showing any intention of urging him. "By the way, may I ask what senior's name is?" "Wu Meng Chuan." Yang Kai silently memorized this man's name and began to consider the gains and losses of agreeing or not. In fact, according to his thoughts, he should agree first. No matter what, he had to obtain the secret technique to lift the seal and restore his strength. But with his current strength, even if he restored his strength, he wouldn't be able to leave Blue Feather Sect. At that time, he would still have to rescue Wu Meng Chuan and use his strength in the Third Order Dao Source realm. But if that was the case, only the heavens knew how this Wu Meng Chuan would deal with him in the end. So Yang Kai was a little hesitant for a while. Just as he was feeling a little embarrassed, the sound of footsteps suddenly came from the passage. Yang Kai raised his head in surprise and frowned slightly. These days, he was taken out by the two guards every day to be tortured, but this time, it seemed that it wasn't time yet. He didn't know why the guards came in at this time. After a while, the two guards who had been torturing Yang Kai appeared at the door of the cell with a strange expression on their faces. After opening the cell, they beckoned to Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun. "Both of you, come out." Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun glanced at each other but didn't resist and stood up obediently. Liu Xianyun's tender body trembled slightly. She subconsciously thought that she was going to suffer the same fate as Yang Kai. On the contrary, Yang Kai asked thoughtfully, "Do you two have any orders?" One of the two guards looked Yang Kai up and down and grinned. "You're lucky, Protector Bien wants to see you." "Protector Bien?" Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. After being locked up here for more than 10 days without receiving any orders from Protector Bien, Yang Kai thought that the other party disdained to pay attention to him and Liu Xianyun, but he didn't expect that the other party would only want to see him today. Regardless of why the other party wanted to do this, Yang Kai saw a glimmer of hope. He exchanged a glance with Liu Xianyun and discovered that her beautiful eyes were also shining brightly. She had obviously realized this as well. Chapter 1944. Since Protector Bien wanted to see Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun, the two guards in the bone prison naturally did not dare to disobey and brought the two out after entering the bone prison. "Little brat, this old master's agreement with you is still valid. If one day you have nowhere to go, you can come to this old master." Just as Yang Kai was about to leave the bone prison, Wu Meng Chuan's voice sounded in his ear again. Yang Kai did not stop, as if he did not hear anything, and soon disappeared, leaving behind the envious eyes of the imprisoned cultivator in the bone prison. When he arrived outside, Yang Kai immediately noticed a pair of resentful eyes staring at him. Looking up, he saw Yang Xiuran, who had previously made things difficult for him. He was responsible for guarding the entrance to the bone prison, so naturally, he would be here. Yang Kai had bitten his treasure-seizing snake to death, so Yang Xiuran hated Yang Kai to the bone. The torture Yang Kai had suffered these days was all because of his instigation. "Little brat, your lucky Protector Bien actually took the time to see you, but don't be complacent. One day you will fall into my hands and I'll make sure you suffer a fate worse than death." Yang Xiuran sneered. Yang Kai's expression was indifferent as he cursed all 18 generations of his ancestors in his heart, hating himself for not being strong enough. Otherwise, he would have killed all of these Blue Feather Sect disciples on the spot. However, he also knew that the other party was too strong, so even if he went all out, he would only end up in a miserable state, so he could only endure for the time being and turn a deaf ear to Yang Xiuran's provocation. "Enough, brother Yang, don't be angry. Protector Bien wants to see these two, so we won't delay." The bone prison guard smiled slightly and said to Yang Xiuran. Then, he casually tossed out an object. This was also a flight-type artifact, but it was completely different from the ship Brother Ku had used before. This flight-type artifact was more like a war chariot and was not as spacious as a ship. However, it was still large enough to accommodate 4 or 5 people and looked extremely ferocious and imposing from the outside. The owner of the war chariot jumped up and waved his hand. Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun were swept into the war chariot. In the next moment, the The war chariot turned into a stream of light and shot towards a certain place in Jade Plume Mountain. They did not speak for the rest of the journey. Soon, the war chariot arrived at a mountain peak. On the mountain peak was an enormous palace. The war chariot landed before the palace. Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun got off the chariot. The bone prison guard took back his flight-type artifact and stepped forward to whisper a few words to the guard at the entrance of the palace. "Go on in. The Guardian Master is waiting inside." The palace guards didn't want to make things difficult for them. Instead, they let them in. "Good luck to both of you." The bone prison guard had no intention of following them in. Instead, he smiled at Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun before summoning the war chariot and returning the way they came. Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun looked at each other. They knew that this was a blessing, not a curse. If it was a curse, they couldn't avoid it, so they could only grit their teeth and hope that Guardian Bien wasn't a difficult person to talk to. The two of them still had their strength sealed at this moment, so they couldn't do anything in this blue feather sect where there were many masters. Ignoring the curious gazes of the guards on both sides, Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun walked into the palace step by step. Inside the palace, there was a spacious space and two people were waiting at the front. As soon as Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun appeared, the two people's eyes turned straight towards them. In an instant, Yang Kai felt his skin tighten. A feeling of being watched spread throughout his body, making him extremely uncomfortable. Looking back, Yang Kai couldn't help but frown. He found that one of the two people was his brother Ku, who had captured him and was standing next to the other person at this moment. As for the second person, she had a graceful figure. It was a beautiful woman with a charming demeanor. She was lying lazily on a chair, wearing a light blue palace dress, her beautiful hair coiled into a bun, her neck white. She seemed to be fiddling with something in her hands, a faint smile on her face as she stared at Yang Kai with great interest. This woman was obviously an extremely charming woman, but Yang Kai could feel that there was a kind of power hidden inside her that he didn't dare to look directly at. Could this woman be Guardian Bien? Yang Kai was shocked. "Are these the people you captured a few days ago?" When Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun approached, the beautiful woman asked slowly. Her voice was sweet and greasy, and it was very pleasant to listen to. When it entered his ears, it was as if there was an invisible hand that was teasing his heartstrings, causing his blood to involuntarily surge. Her question was obviously directed at senior brother Ku. Brother Ku hurriedly bowed and lowered his eyes, seemingly not daring to look at the beautiful woman, respectfully replying to Master, "It is these two." The beautiful woman nodded slightly. Her beautiful eyes glowed with a strange light. Her red lips wriggled as she said indifferently, "Release their restrictions." Hearing this, Brother Ku immediately formed a series of hand seals and pointed at Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun. Two streaks of light shot out and poured into the two's bodies. In the next moment, Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun involuntarily let out light groans as the strength they had been restraining began to flow through their bodies again, making them feel very happy. "Ha ha!" The beautiful woman suddenly chuckled lightly and then, under the stunned gazes of Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun, slowly raised a jade hand. As soon as this jade hand was raised, both Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun felt as if something had suddenly changed around them. A dignified and austere atmosphere suddenly filled the air, causing both of their expressions to change at the same time. Brother Ku, on the other hand, seemed to have expected this and was not surprised at all, simply observing the reactions of the two indifferently. The beautiful woman gently waved her jade hand and condensed the surrounding world energy into a terrifying attack that shot towards Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun. "What are you doing?" Liu Xianyun exclaimed in shock. At the same time, she bit the tip of her tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood essence to summon a mirror-like artifact. As soon as this artifact appeared, it split into 2, then 4, then 8. In an instant, countless small mirrors appeared around Liu Xianyun. These mirrors were like the depths of the sea, pulsing with a dim light, causing those who saw them to feel awestruck. She also knew that the other party was a Dao Source Realm Master, and most likely not an ordinary one at that, so she immediately used her most powerful artifact to defend herself. She didn't even think about contending with the beautiful woman. She only wanted to block her opponent's attack. Yang Kai, on the other hand, roared as a five-colored light burst from his body and his five elements indestructible sword chi wrapped around his body. Flicking his 10 fingers, he sent out a series of golden blood threads to meet the terrifying attack descending from the sky. Asterisk kai 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 kai. Asterisk a soft sound rang out as the golden blood threads transformed into various forms under the control of Yang Kai's mind, but like snowflakes in early spring meeting the blazing sun, they were unable to withstand a single blow. The great force that descended from the sky caused the golden blood threads to flicker wildly. Liu Xianyun shouted as all the mirrors around her suddenly merged into one and formed a barrier above her and Yang Kai's heads. Asterisk Huala. Asterisk the next moment, the mirror shattered and Liu Xianyun's face paled as she coughed up a mouthful of blood. The mirror-like artifact reverted back to its original form, its light dimming slightly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yang Kai shot up into the sky, the five-colored light that represented his five elements indestructible sword chi tearing open a gap in the oppressive attack, allowing him to escape. Twisting his body mid-air, Yang Kai pounced towards the beautiful woman who had been sitting lazily on the chair with a fierce expression. The beautiful woman remained motionless, a smirk still hanging on her face. Big Brother Ku, who was standing next to her, stepped in front of the beautiful woman and sent out a palm strike towards Yang Kai. This palm strike seemed simple, but there was a violent energy swirling around it. As soon as Yang Kai came into contact with it, he felt as if his defenses were being flattened as if they were dried weeds and rotten wood. An irresistible force was rushing towards him. Yang Kai couldn't help letting out a muffled groan as he was sent flying backwards. Liu Xianyun looked flustered, thinking that she was doomed this time, so she grit her teeth and pushed all her strength to attack the beautiful woman and Big Brother Ku. She actually wanted to die together with these two. Xianyun, stand down. Yang Kai shouted from mid-air before crashing to the ground. Hearing Yang Kai's shout, Liu Xianyun also stopped obediently and stared ahead vigilantly, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The beautiful woman chuckled again as her beautiful eyes paused on Yang Kai, a hint of scrutiny flashing across her eyes as she nodded lightly. Ku Wu, what did I say? They really were able to block my attack, right? Hearing this, Ku Wu bowed respectfully. Master's vision is like a torch. Ku Wu admires it greatly. The beautiful woman giggled, the twin peaks of her breasts trembling as she pursed her lips. Don't flatter me, although this queen only used a little bit of my strength just now, it's not bad that these two were able to block it. What Master says is correct. Ku Wu nodded again. The two of them didn't lower their voices, so Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun heard them clearly. Yang Kai wasn't surprised, but Liu Xianyun's brow furrowed as a look of dissatisfaction appeared on her face, as if she had been fooled. You seem to have noticed something. The beautiful woman looked at Yang Kai and asked unhurriedly. Yang Kai wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and grinned. If Master really wanted to kill us, why would you have someone bring us here? The previous attack was obviously just a test. The beautiful woman heard this and smiled. Boy, you're a bit interesting. Then do you know why this queen wants to see you? Yang Kai frowned and quickly said, Please enlighten me, Master. The beautiful woman nodded and reached out to pick up 2 space rings from the table next to her, tossing them out casually, causing them to turn into 2 streams of light that shot towards Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun respectively. The two of them caught the space rings and swept them with their divine senses, suddenly showing strange expressions. Because they discovered that these were the space rings that belonged to the two of them that Ku Wu had taken away before, and none of their things were missing. Master, what do you mean by this? Yang Kai frowned. If this queen is not mistaken, you came from a certain star territory down below, yes? The beautiful woman looked at the two of them and asked with a smile. Liu Xianyun was startled and glanced at Yang Kai subconsciously, thinking that his identity as a star master had been exposed and couldn't help worrying. Chapter 1945. Yang Kai's expression remained calm as he pondered for a moment before speculating. Master came to this conclusion based on the things in our space rings? Indeed. The beautiful woman nodded lightly. Only a cultivator from the star territory down below would have so much garbage. Liu Xianyun was very annoyed that her treasures were being evaluated as garbage, but when she thought of the other party's strength, status, and methods, she could only remain silent. Perhaps the treasures that were very valuable to her were indeed garbage in front of this young master. On the other hand, young Kai did not care at all because his space ring was originally filled with garbage to deceive others. Even if there were a few decent things inside, they were of little value, so it was not an exaggeration to call them garbage. Young Kai smiled lightly and said, "So, our suspicions have been cleared." The suspicions he was referring to were naturally related to the spies from Daybreak Pavilion. The beautiful woman smiled lightly. "You can say that. However, this queen is very curious. Which star territory do you come from?" "Great Desolate Star Territory." Young Kai immediately replied without hesitation. Liu Xianyun was tactful enough to not say anything. "Oh," the beautiful woman said thoughtfully, "I have heard of this star territory. There seems to be a sect in the star boundary that has some relationship with this star territory." "Master, are you talking about the Netherworld sect?" "We are not from that Netherworld sect." Young Kai naturally knew that the other party was probing him, so he immediately answered while smiling coldly, "On the contrary, we have some grievances with the people from Netherworld sect." "Is that so?" The beautiful woman looked at young Kai with a faint smile, her beautiful eyes exuding a strange light, as if she wanted to pierce into the depths of young Kai's soul. She wanted to see if he was telling the truth. "Yes, in the Starlight Corridor, we were plotted against by the people from Netherworld sect." Young Kai coldly snorted, his eyes filled with resentment. It was as if he had an irreconcilable enmity with the Netherworld sect. The beautiful woman nodded and did not say anything more. She pondered for a moment before saying, "Since you are not spies from Daybreak Pavilion and are from the star territory down below, this queen will be your choice. This queen can give you two choices. I'd like to hear the details. 1. Leave my blue feather sect right now, the further the better." The beautiful woman raised a white finger and smiled gently. Hearing her say this, Liu Xianyun's expression changed and she almost agreed, but before she spoke, she subconsciously glanced at young Kai and found that his face was indifferent. He quickly swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. "What about the second one?" Young Kai asked. "The second is naturally to join my blue feather sect and become a disciple of my blue feather sect. Although my blue feather sect is not a great sect in the Southern Territory, it still has a strong foundation. If you join, you will have a place to settle down and will be protected in the future. If you encounter any difficulties in your cultivation, I can also help you solve them." "Is there such a good thing?" Young Kai's eyes lit up. He seemed to be greatly moved. The beautiful woman smiled but didn't say anything. She was very satisfied with young Kai's attitude. Young Kai thought for a while and asked, "I have another question." "Speak." The beautiful woman raised her chin slightly, her expression proud and cold. "Our strength is not very high, so why does Master want to accept us into the sect?" Young Kai asked in a deep voice. The beautiful woman covered her mouth and smiled, "Because you come from the lower star territory. A cultivator like you is very valuable. But unfortunately, you are not a star master. If you were a star master, you would be able to receive even more care. So that's how it is." Young Kai nodded lightly. Liu Xianyun had also mentioned this to him before. The cultivators who came from low-level starfields were all top-notch geniuses of their respective starfields, so when they came to the star boundary, they were all extremely talented. They were very popular with the great sects, even if they were not a star master. They would also receive the favor of many masters. The beautiful woman's explanation made sense. "So, what is your choice?" The beautiful woman looked at young Kai and asked, "What is there to hesitate about?" "Naturally, I want to join the Blue Feather sect." Young Kai didn't even think about it and directly agreed, then immediately turned his head and asked, "Xianyun, what do you think?" Liu Xianyun looked at him blankly, not having expected young Kai to make such a hasty decision. When she was asked this question, she couldn't help feeling a little helpless. However, after meeting young Kai's eyes, Liu Xianyun nodded, "Then we will follow Brother Young's wishes, I will also join." Hearing this, the beautiful woman smiled, stood up from her chair, and said, "Then from now on, you will be disciples of my Blue Feather sect and will be under the jurisdiction of this queen for the time being. Ku Wu, take them to arrange a place to live and let them cultivate well. Don't let this queen down. After saying this, the beautiful woman turned around and left. Ku Wu respectfully nodded behind her. After the beautiful woman left, Ku Wu looked at Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun with a smile and said, "Then from now on, we will all be fellow sect members. Big brother hasn't asked what your names are yet." Yang Kai greets big brother Ku. Yang Kai smiled and cupped his fists, appearing very familiar. Although Liu Xianyun felt awkward, she could only report her name. After learning the names of the two, Ku Wu said, "So it's junior brother Yang and junior sister Liu. Junior brother has offended you two junior brothers a few days ago, please don't take it to heart. This big brother also has a task to complete. Big brother Ku is too serious. What happened before was our fault, we don't blame big brother." Ku Wu nodded and beckoned, "Come with me, I'll take you to your residence. You can settle down first and familiarize yourself with the environment. Our Blue Feather sect is quite good." Walking all the way down to the bottom of the mountain, Ku Wu pointed to two adjacent wooden houses and said, "These will be your residences from now on. Each house has a barrier that requires an identity token to activate. As for your identity tokens, someone will deliver them to you in 2 days. You can stay here for 2 days and don't run around. Once you receive your tokens, you can go out for a walk, otherwise, you may run into some unnecessary trouble." "Understood." Yang Kai nodded and said, "Big brother Ku, what do we need to do on a daily basis?" Ku Wu smiled when he heard this. "For the time being, you don't need to do anything. All you need to do is cultivate diligently. If there is a task for you, I will call you. In addition, we are all under the jurisdiction of Protector Bien. The other peaks have nothing to do with us, we only need to listen to Protector Bien's orders." "Good, that's all for today, we'll talk about it another day." Saying so, Ku Wu turned to leave. Yang Kai suddenly remembered something and hurriedly called out, "Big brother Ku, what's the matter?" Ku Wu frowned, seemingly a little impatient. Yang Kai leaned over and whispered, "Big brother Ku, Protector Master, her cultivation." Ku Wu chuckled lightly. "The third order Dao Source Realm is not something you can dream of right now. Cultivate step by step. Big brother is right." Yang Kai nodded. After Ku Wu left, leaving only Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun, Yang Kai's expression suddenly became indifferent as he winked at Liu Xianyun and walked into one of the wooden houses. Liu Xianyun followed closely behind. The layout of the house was very simple, just a bed, a futon, a table, and a chair. Although it seemed that no one had lived here for a long time, it was still spotless, obviously due to some kind of barrier. After Yang Kai took a seat, he released his divine sense to check the surroundings. After confirming that no one was eavesdropping, he asked, "You want to ask me why I joined Blue Feather sect, right?" Liu Xianyun thought for a moment before replying, "I did have this question, but after thinking about it carefully, I'm afraid this is our only way out. Although Protector Bien gave us 2 choices, who knows what the consequences of choosing the other path will be. You've seen the way Blue Feather sect acts, none of them are kind people." Yang Kai sighed. Liu Xianyun also smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect things to turn out like this as soon as we entered the star boundary. If I had known earlier, it's useless to regret it now. Let's take one step at a time. As long as we are strong enough, do you think we can't get out of here?" Yang Kai sneered. "That's true." Liu Xianyun smiled bitterly. "In that case, I'll go rest first." The next few days passed peacefully. Because his identity tokens had not been distributed yet, Yang Kai did not dare to move around at will and simply stayed in retreat to cultivate. Without the barrier in his body, the speed at which his Saint Chi was transformed into Source Chi greatly increased. Yang Kai vaguely felt that he was about to touch the threshold of the Third Order Origin King realm. Before entering the Star Territory, Yang Kai had spent several years in the Dead Territory outside Shadowed Star, comprehending the infinite Emperor pressure that flowed there, benefiting him greatly. After that, he had accumulated a lot of experience in the Starlight Corridor, so he was confident he could break through to the Third Order Origin King realm. However, he was not in a hurry. After all, he had just joined Blue Feather sect, so if his performance was too eye-catching, it was very likely to attract unnecessary trouble. As such, after accumulating enough Saint Chi, Yang Kai put down his cultivation progress and simply let his body absorb the starlight and transform his Saint Qi into Source Qi, trying to make the next breakthrough easier. A few days later, Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun's identity tokens were brought over by Ku Wu. With these identity tokens, it meant that the two of them had truly become disciples of Blue Feather Sect and could move about freely except for some restricted areas. Yang Kai took this opportunity to walk around and meet many disciples of Blue Feather Sect. Regardless of the temperament of these people, the ones Yang Kai met were all origin kings who were cultivators of the star boundary, so they naturally knew a lot about it. After some inquiries, Yang Kai learned some good information. That was, the Emperor realm did not exist in Blue Feather Sect. There were only 5 masters from the Third Order Dao Source realm, and Bian Yuqing was one of them. This was not much different from his original estimate. After learning that Bian Yuqing was a master from the Third Order Dao Source realm, Yang Kai guessed that even if there were the Emperor realm masters in Blue Feather Sect, there would not be many, and their realm would not be high. This was because the cultivation of a protector could directly reflect the highest level of combat power in a sect. In addition to Bian Yuqing, there were 4 other masters from the Third Order Dao Source realm. One was the sect master while the other 3 were also protectors in charge of the other 3 peaks. The 4 protectors each had their own duties and were not related to each other. Chapter 1946. Time flew by, and soon Yang Kai had been in Blue Feather Sect for more than a month. In a month's time, he had basically figured out the general situation of the sect. During this time, he and Liu Xianyun's lives were uneventful. Apart from cultivating, they cultivated. No one came looking for trouble with them, and the sect did not give them any missions. Judging from this situation, choosing to join Blue Feather Sect was a good choice. At the very least, there was a place for them to settle down. However, Yang Kai knew that this was only temporary. Any disciple who joined a sect would have to contribute to the sect at some point. The reason why he and Liu Xianyun were relaxed now was because Blue Feather Sect had not encountered any difficulties. Once Blue Feather Sect encountered an enemy or some other crisis, they would have to participate in the battle. Yang Kai had no sense of belonging to Blue Feather Sect, so naturally, he was not willing to risk his life for such a sect. Moreover, Yang Kai always felt that a pair of eyes were observing him and Liu Xianyun, obviously because they had just joined the sect and were still under observation. Yang Kai did not care. He and Liu Xianyun had not shown any excessive behavior during this time, so even if someone was monitoring them, they would not expose anything. Inside Blue Feather Sect, there was a lively shopping district where Blue Feather Sect's disciples exchanged materials or purchased things. In this shopping district, some of the good roads and wide views were naturally occupied by powerful disciples while some remote locations were reserved for ordinary disciples. Early in the morning, Yang Kai and Liu Xianyun arrived at the market and walked straight into a remote location. Inside a simple shop. Outside the shop, there were already more than 30 cultivators lined up in a long line. When they saw Yang Kai arrive, they all cupped their fists and greeted him. "Junior brother Yang. You've come early. Junior brother Yang, hurry up and get to work, we've been waiting for you for a long time. Junior brother Yang, I'm the first one here today. Help me refine first." These cultivators were basically all Origin King Realm cultivators, with a few Origin returning Realm Masters. Each of them had a friendly smile on their faces as they took the initiative to greet Yang Kai. With a smile on his face, Yang Kai cupped his fists and said, "Let's get to work. Thank you for waiting so long, brother and senior sister." While speaking, just as he was about to enter the shop, at this moment, a young woman with an enchanting figure and beautiful appearance walked over gracefully. Ignoring the strange gazes of the surrounding people, she directly took Yang Kai's arm and pressed her large and full chest against Yang Kai's elbow. She breathed in his ear and said, "Junior brother, don't mind them. Today, I'll help senior sister refine a furnace of 9 revolving void spirit pills, okay? Senior sister, I'm still preparing to go back and cultivate in seclusion." "Ah. Senior sister, this shop has rules, first come, first served." Yang Kai's face was filled with black lines as he pulled his arm away without a trace. The young woman did not give up and continued to pester Yang Kai. "It doesn't matter, Senior sister can go and talk to them, I'm sure they won't dare to refuse. If you help senior sister refine first, senior sister can, in the end. She took the initiative to put her red lips close to Yang Kai's ear. Whispering a few words, the seductive light in her beautiful eyes was almost dripping. Is there such a good thing? Yang Kai's eyes flashed a green light as an excited expression appeared on his face. Me. To the side, Liu Xianyun's pretty face turned cold. Looking at Kai Yang with extreme disdain, from his nostrils he spat out a meaningful sound. Yang Kai let out a hollow laugh. Stretching out his hand, he patted the young woman's back and said with a look of regret, Senior sister, rules cannot be broken. Junior brother can't help, but, if senior sister is interested, you can come to my humble abode some other day and we can have a good chat. Seeing that her seduction had failed, the young woman immediately curled her lips and snorted, not willing to help at all. What a stingy brat. Saying so, she directly shook off Yang Kai's arm and glared fiercely at Liu Xianyun, as if blaming her for ruining her good deed. Liu Xianyun's expression was dull as she took out a sign she had made in advance from her space ring and placed it in front of her, coldly saying, Brother and senior sister, please line up in order to refine pills. The remuneration and commission are written on the sign. Please also prepare the materials in advance for any spirit pills you wish to refine. If the refinement fails, there will be no refund. Everything she said was written on the sign, so there was no need for her to deliberately repeat it, but she still said it responsibly. While she was speaking, Yang Kai had already tiptoed into the shop, took out his purple origin furnace, closed his eyes, and prepared to start the day's work. After getting along for more than a month, the relationship between him and Liu Xianyun had become more and more harmonious. In this unfamiliar star boundary, although the two of them did not come from the same star territory, because there were too many similarities between them, it was easy for them to get along. A few days after arriving at Blue Feather Sect though, the two of them discovered a problem. They could not obtain any cultivation resources. Although they were already disciples of Blue Feather Sect, the sect would not distribute cultivation resources to its disciples for no reason. If they wanted to obtain resources, they had to pay a price for the sect or find a way to obtain them themselves. For an Origin King Realm Master, Saint Crystals were useless. The energy stored in Saint Crystals could not meet the needs of an Origin King cultivator. In the star boundary, there was something called Source Crystals that replaced Saint Crystals. The energy stored in Source Crystals was countless times richer than that of Saint Crystals. Even an Origin King Realm or even a Dao Source Realm cultivator would be able to satisfy their cultivation needs. Like Saint Crystals, Source Crystals were divided into 3 grades, high, middle, and low, with the exchange rate between each grade being 1 to 10. They were the hard currency used between cultivators. In other words, if Yang Kai wanted to speed up his cultivation, he had to find a way to obtain source crystals so that he could buy what he wanted. However, he was unfamiliar with this place and had no idea how to obtain his own cultivation resources. However, after discovering the existence of this market, Yang Kai had the idea of earning source crystals by performing alchemy for others. He was an Origin King grade alchemist who had triggered the Grand Alchemic Dao Tone, so although his alchemy skills were not as good as Xia Ningchang's, they were still quite good. Origin King grade alchemists were extremely powerful existences in the territory of Homestar. But in the star boundary, they were very common. As such, Yang Kai was not worried about exposing any of his secrets. As long as he was careful and did not go too far, he believed that his identity as an alchemist would allow him to gain more attention. In other words, his and Liu Xianyun's safety would be greatly guaranteed. After considering these gains and losses, Yang Kai no longer hesitated. After discussing with Liu Xianyun, he began to act in the market. The first few days were extremely difficult. No one was willing, or rather, no one dared to hand over their herbs to him for alchemy. After all, the cultivation resources obtained by the Blue Feather Sect disciples were all risking their lives, so who would dare to hand them over to a junior brother they did not know? What's more, in this market, there was more than one alchemist who could perform alchemy for others, so there was no need to take the risk of losing both money and goods just to find Yang Kai. For 3 days, Yang Kai did not even open a single business, causing Liu Xianyun to almost despair. On the fourth day, Yang Kai steeled his heart and put up a sign stating that alchemy was free and full compensation should the refinement fail. As soon as this sure-kill move appeared, someone finally dared to try it. In any case, even if the refinement failed, full compensation would be paid, so there was no harm in trying. When Yang Kai refined the first spirit pill, Liu Xianyun was like an ant in a pot of boiling oil, anxious and restless. After all, she and Yang Kai did not even have a single source crystal right now, so if the refinement failed, there was no way they could compensate others. After waiting for an hour, the wait felt like a year. Yang Kai actually succeeded. What's more, the Origin King grade spirit pill he refined was of extremely high quality and flawless, greatly satisfying the alchemist. When the pill was completed, a rich pill fragrance wafted across half the street, filling everyone's nostrils with disbelief. The alchemist was also very happy and kept praising Yang Kai's skills, promising that if he ever wanted to perform alchemy in the future, he would definitely come to Yang Kai. Yang Kai generously accepted this praise and made a request to the alchemist to advertise for him so that more people would come to perform alchemy. The Blue Feather sect disciple naturally agreed after receiving such a bargain. On the first day, Yang Kai refined 3 furnaces of pills, all of which were successful and of extremely high quality. On the second day, Yang Kai refined 8 furnaces. On the third day, a long line of cultivators came to Yang Kai to perform alchemy. Yang Kai immediately asked Liu Xianyun to replace the free alchemy sign with a clear price tag that stated how many source crystals would be charged for each pill refined. After nearly a month of hard work, Yang Kai had earned a lot of source crystals, and more importantly, his name had begun to spread throughout the market. Almost all the Blue Feather sect disciples who came to the market for alchemy knew that in this remote corner, there was a simple shop owned by a junior brother with extremely high alchemy skills. Not only was his failure rate extremely low, but the quality of the spirit pills he refined was also extremely high. Naturally, many people came to ask for alchemy services, causing the entrance of the small shop to become bustling with activity. Yang Kai was very restrained. He had never refined a pill with pill veins, and from time to time, he would deliberately fail 1 or 2 furnaces as a disguise. Only in this way could he better hide his attainments in alchemy. A few years ago, on Water Moonstar, he triggered the Grand Alchemic Tao Tone, allowing Yang Kai's comprehension of the alchemic Tao to reach an incredible level. Now, he was even more proficient in alchemy than before, and all kinds of herbs seemed to come to life in his hands. His alchemy process coincided with the Grand Tao and was beyond the reach of ordinary people. As for Liu Xianyun, she was responsible for receiving the cultivator who came to ask for alchemy services, delivering the alchemy herbs into the shop, and at the same time, taking out the refined spirit pills and handing them to the people waiting outside. The two of them performed their respective duties and cooperated seamlessly. Every night, after finishing work, Yang Kai would give Liu Xianyun 30% of the day's profits. In fact, according to Liu Xianyun's original idea, she was not even qualified to receive 10%. After all, Yang Kai was the one refining the pills while she was only responsible for receiving customers outside. However, Yang Kai insisted on giving her 30% of the profits, which made Liu Xianyun very grateful to Yang Kai for his generosity. Chapter 1947. Before performing alchemy, Yang Kai had also inquired a little about the Star Boundaries alchemy techniques from the Blue Feather sect disciples he had met in the market. He found that the Star Boundaries alchemy techniques were extremely profound, on a completely different level from those in Star Territory. Without mentioning anything else, even an ordinary alchemist in the Star Boundary could condense 2 or 3 spirit pills at a time, unlike the situation in Star Territory where each set of materials could only refine 1 spirit pill. The reason for this was that the Star Boundaries pill condensing techniques had become so widespread that any alchemist was qualified to learn them. However, there was a limit to the number of pills that could be condensed in any furnace. For example, the furnace Yang Kai was refining now was a Luo Wang Fuyi pill, an Origin King grade midrank spirit pill. With Yang Kai's alchemy skills, it was not difficult to refine, and if he went all out, he could definitely refine a pill with pill veins. Even the most powerful alchemist would only be able to condense 9 pills in the final process of condensing pills, which required 17 different kinds of raw materials to refine. 9 spirit pills was the limit of this furnace, and even an Emperor Realm Master would not be able to successfully condense more. Different spirit pills and different pill recipes would result in different numbers of spirit pills being condensed in the end. To condense the maximum number of Origin King grade mid-rank spirit pills, one needed to be at least a Dao Source grade alchemist. Yang Kai's current limit was 6 spirit pills. During the process of alchemy, Yang Kai was constantly familiarizing himself with his alchemy techniques and pill condensing techniques, verifying them with the grand alchemic Dao tone imprinted in his knowledge sea, allowing his alchemy skills to improve rapidly. In less than an hour, Yang Kai had finished. The Luo Wang Fu Yi pill, which could restore an Origin King realm cultivator's source qi, had been refined, and the number of pills condensed was also the limit of what Yang Kai could condense. Yang Kai stuffed 3 of them into his space ring and threw the remaining 3 into a jade bottle he had prepared in advance. The spirit pills in the jade bottle were for the person who asked for them, so 3 were enough to meet his needs. As for the extra pills, they were naturally pocketed by Yang Kai. Therefore, after these days of alchemy, Yang Kai not only harvested a lot of source crystals, but also a lot of spirit pills of various uses. If he were to sell it, he would definitely be able to make quite a fortune. Unfortunately, he could only refine Origin King grade spirit pills now and did not have any Dao Source grade materials to practice with. Otherwise, Yang Kai would have liked to try refining Dao Source grade pills to see if he had reached that level. After sealing the jade bottle, Yang Kai casually tossed it up and down, secretly lamenting how easy it was for an alchemist to earn cultivation resources. Just as he was about to ask Liu Xianyun to come in and take the pill, suddenly, Liu Xianyun's tender voice rang in his ears, followed by a series of crashing sounds. Yang Kai's face sank. He quickly got up and rushed out like a whirlwind. Outside, Yang Kai glanced around and saw Liu Xianyun standing to the side with an ugly expression on her face. The sign that had been placed in front of her had been thrown to the ground. It had been trampled under the foot of a cultivator wearing blue feather sect robes and had been reduced to several pieces. Outside the shop, the cultivator who had been waiting in line for alchemy frowned one by one and spread out to watch from a distance. Seeing Yang Kai appear, Liu Xianyun seemed to have found her backbone and quickly approached him. What happened? Yang Kai frowned and asked. He had been refining alchemy here with Liu Xianyun for almost a month and had not provoked anyone, so he could not understand how someone had come to cause trouble today. They said there was a problem with the pill you were refining. Liu Xianyun came to Yang Kai and whispered. What problem? Yang Kai raised his eyes and glanced at the opposite side. They didn't make it clear. When they came over, they directly attacked. Liu Xianyun grit her teeth. Her face was filled with anger as she stared aggrievedly at the sign that had been trampled under the foot of the cultivator in front of her. Because she was cooperating with Yang Kai in alchemy and Yang Kai generously gave her 30% of the profits, Liu Xianyun had been working hard these days. She felt that she could not help Yang Kai in alchemy, so she could only work on the sign. The design of the sign. Every word and stroke on it had been carefully carved by her. Every day, she would take it out when she came and put it into her space ring when she left. Every night, she would even carefully wipe it clean when she returned home. The signboard was spotless. This was the only way she could help Yang Kai. But now, the sign that she had worked so hard on had become tattered, so Liu Xianyun was naturally extremely dissatisfied. You attacked without making it clear? Yang Kai raised his brow and coldly snorted in his heart. He knew that even if he did not show off during this time, helping someone with alchemy had probably blocked someone's path to wealth. Otherwise, how could such a scene occur? Are you the alchemist here? Opposite him, the cultivator who had stepped on the sign looked at Yang Kai arrogantly with a cold smile on his face as he asked. May I ask what this brother's name is? Yang Kai looked at the other party indifferently. Well said, I am Chu Fei, Protector Zhu's disciple. Yang Kai's heart moved as he knew that the Protector Zhu this person was talking about was one of the 4 protectors of Blue Feather Sect, Zhu Junshan. This person's cultivation was similar to Bian Yuqing's, a third-order Dao Source realm cultivator, not something Yang Kai could reach right now. However, because the relationship between the 4 protectors was not very harmonious, if it were not for the sect master's suppression, Blue Feather sect would have already fallen apart. However, it was also for this reason that the relationship between the disciples of the four protectors was not very harmonious. In the sect, there were many disputes between disciples, and some even fought in private, leading to injuries and injuries. Outside the sect, the situation was even more obvious. When Yang Kai heard that the other party was a disciple of Protector Zhu, he knew that this person was here to cause trouble. So it's Brother Chu. I wonder why Brother broke Junior Brother's sign? Yang Kai asked in a deep voice. Don't play dumb in front of this Chu, don't tell me you don't know what happened. Chu Fei coldly snorted, as if he was serious. Yang Kai shook his head and said, I have only been in the sect for about a month, so I don't think I have ever offended Brother Chu, please enlighten me. Chu Fei chuckled and nodded, good, since you say so, this brother will explain it to you. Saying so, he waved his hand and said, bring him here. Not far behind him, a few cultivators immediately came over carrying a stretcher. Lying on this stretcher was a man who looked extremely miserable, his strength fluctuating erratically, sometimes silent, sometimes surging fiercely. He seemed to have lost his consciousness, his eyes red and his mouth emitting incomprehensible cries. Even lying on the stretcher, he struggled hard, but there was a layer of restrictions around his body that made it impossible for him to move. A misfire has become the demon race, the onlookers exclaimed. The situation of the cultivator lying on the stretcher was obviously one where a misfire had become the demon race. It was very likely that something had gone wrong during his retreat, causing him to lose control of his strength. If it was not stopped, this person would likely be crippled. However, it was extremely difficult to stop a misfire from becoming the demon race. Unless there was someone with a great divine technique to suppress it, there was no way this cultivator could turn the tide. This was a misfortune that any cultivator feared. Once they encountered it, their life would be over. Junior brother, do you recognize this person? Chu Fei looked at Yang Kai coldly and asked as he pointed to the cultivator on the stretcher. Yang Kai glanced at him and nodded, I have some impression of him. He seems to have come to me for a pill 5 days ago. As soon as this statement came out, Liu Xianyun's pretty face suddenly turned pale. She was not stupid and had vaguely guessed what would happen next, so she could not help looking at Yang Kai with worry. Junior brother, it's good that you admit it, Chu Fei sneered. My junior brother Jiang is a heaven-defying genius, reaching the second-order origin king realm at such a young age. His future is limitless. Even Protector Zhu has praised him many times, saying that he is the most talented disciple of our branch. So what? Yang Kai looked at Chu Fei indifferently. Chu Fei's face turned cold as he said fiercely, but he was ruined by your hands. Junior brother, how do you think this matter should be resolved? Big brother must be joking. Yang Kai chuckled, Brother Jiang became the demon race during his cultivation, how could I have ruined him? What does that have to do with me? You still don't want to admit it. If he hadn't taken the pill you refined, how could he have become the demon race? You just said yourself that he came to you for a pill 5 days ago. Chu Fei shouted. Hearing what Chu Fei said, the faces of the onlookers suddenly changed. After all, they had all been waiting in line for Yang Kai to perform alchemy a moment ago. If the pill Yang Kai refined was really problematic, who would dare to look for him? All of them could not help rejoicing in their hearts. Fortunately, Chu Fei had come in time, otherwise, they would very likely have become the next junior brother Jiang. Yes, he did come to me for a pill 5 days ago, but that does not mean that his becoming the demon race had anything to do with me. Perhaps it was because his foundation was unstable. There are many reasons for a cultivator to become the demon race. Big brother, don't you think it's unfair to slander me like this? Yang Kai looked at Chu Fei coldly. The other party was just a third-order origin king, so Yang Kai was not afraid of him at all. The only thing that worried Yang Kai was whether Chu Fei had some kind of power behind him. It was impossible for Chu Fei to come looking for trouble for no reason, so the only problem was the spirit pill. In this market, there were several alchemists and shops that provided alchemy services, but they were all established by the Blue Feather sect disciples themselves and had no direct relationship with the protectors. Big brother is not slandering you. Junior brother Jiang came to you for a pill 5 days ago, and after returning, he has been in retreat, but a few days later, he became the demon race. Now that he has become like this, don't say it's just a coincidence. Protector Zhu said that he was a heavenly talent, so how could his foundation be unstable? Besides the problem with the spirit pill you refined, I can't think of a second reason. Yes, after Big Brother Jiang came back that day with a happy expression on his face, saying that he had picked up a big bargain. I even advised him to find someone to verify the quality of the spirit pill he refined, but he was in a hurry to enter retreat. Now it seems that cheap things are no good. I didn't expect that Big Brother Jiang would have such a problem after just a few days of retreat, a Blue Feather sect disciple who had come with Chu Fei echoed. Chapter 1948. The market was extremely lively, and there were many people coming and going. Although Yang Kai's rented shop was located in a remote location, as soon as this incident happened, it attracted countless cultivator onlookers. The people who came later did not know the whole story, only seeing the miserable appearance of the cultivator surnamed Jiang and foreseeing his future fate. All of them glared angrily at Yang Kai, as if Yang Kai was really a lousy alchemist who dared to harm his fellow alchemists. Naturally, there were some people who knew that this matter was not as simple as it seemed on the surface, but in Blue Feather sect, there was little sentiment between the disciples, and none of them had any friendship with Yang Kai, so naturally, none of them would stand up for him at this time and cause trouble for themselves. Yang Kai observed the situation carefully and knew that if he didn't handle this matter well today, he would no longer be able to earn source crystals by alchemy here in the future. It didn't matter if he could refine alchemy or not, but he was worried that the other party might have some kind of follow-up plot. Do you have any evidence that Brother Jiang became the demon race because of the spirit pill refined by Brother Yang? Liu Xianyun asked through gritted teeth, but this question was obviously feeble. Chu Fei sneered, "Junior Brother Jiang is here, what evidence do you need?" Liu Xianyun was speechless for a while and looked anxiously at Yang Kai. Yang Kai pondered for a moment before saying, 5 days ago, Brother Jiang came to me and asked me to refine an emperor-grade blood yang pill. This spirit pill's function is to supplement one's vitality. Perhaps it is related to some kind of secret technique Brother Jiang cultivates. At that time, I gave him 4 spirit pills. Dare I ask if he has any left? If there are any remaining spirit pills, he can find an alchemy grandmaster of the sect to examine them and see if there is any problem with them. Liu Xianyun's beautiful eyes lit up when she heard this. She excitedly said, "Yes, if there are any remaining spirit pills, can't you just find someone to verify them?" Chu Fei snorted, "All the spirit pills have been taken by Junior Brother Jiang, where do you want me to find the rest?" Yang Kai spread out his hands, "Brother Chu said so." That meant that there was no evidence at all. It was pure slander. Then there was nothing that could be done. Forgive this junior brother for not keeping you company. Brothers, take care. When you find evidence, it won't be too late to argue with me. As he spoke, Yang Kai turned around and was about to enter the store. The other party was clearly looking for trouble, and Yang Kai didn't have the heart to continue entangling with them. "You want to leave? Do you think you can escape?" When Chu Fei saw Yang Kai's attitude, he suddenly became furious and shouted, "A life for a life, a debt must be repaid. You want to leave just like that after hurting junior martial brother Jiang to this extent? How can there be such a good deal in this world?" Yang Kai turned around and looked at Chu Fei with a smile, asking coldly, "What does Brother Chu think we should do?" "Come with me to Protector Zhu to receive your punishment," Chu Fei shouted. "Nonsense, I am Protector Bian's disciple. Even if there is a punishment, it is Protector Bian's business. Since when was it Protector Zhu's turn to decide? Bold, daring to be disrespectful to Master Protector. You've only just entered the sect, yet you're already so arrogant. What will you do in the future? Let this brother teach you a good lesson on how to be a qualified junior brother." Chu Fei was here to pick a fight, and now that he had finally found a reason to take action, how could he endure? Saying so, Chu Fei arrived in front of Yang Kai in a flash and stretched out his hand towards Yang Kai. The power of the Origin King's territory domain burst forth and completely enveloped Yang Kai, as if it could completely seal the space around him, making it extremely viscous and difficult for him to move. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed. Similarly, he pushed his territory domain. Resisting the suppression of his opponent's territory domain, at the same time, a golden light flashed from his hand and several dozen golden blood threads appeared. These golden blood threads suddenly transformed into a long golden blood whip and lashed out towards Chu Fei. Space seemed to be torn apart. The violent vitality contained in the golden blood threads seemed to have transformed into a ferocious viper, exuding an unparalleled pressure that made it difficult for anyone to take them lightly. Chu Fei was taken aback. He had thought that his opponent was just a junior brother who had just broken through to the second-order Origin King realm. With his third-order Origin King strength, wouldn't it be a piece of cake for him to deal with him? How could he have known that Yang Kai's attack would be so strange? Not only was his opponent's territory domain not weaker than his own, but it was also much more solid, making it impossible for his territory domain to suppress him. What's more, the majestic power contained in this casual attack also showed that this junior brother's source chi was surging. Otherwise, with a difference of only a minor realm, it would have been impossible for Chu Fei to feel any pressure. As the golden blood thread whip lashed out, a chill surged from Chu Fei's heart. Without even thinking about it, Chu Fei quickly withdrew his hand and summoned a mirror-like artifact in front of him. A burst of light shot out from the mirror towards the golden blood thread whip and at the same time formed a cone-shaped barrier in front of him. With a light bang, the golden blood thread whip struck the mirror-like barrier but was deflected to the side, failing to hurt Chu Fei. This mirror can actually deflect attacks. But if that's all, Yang Kai's lips curled into a sneer. The deflected golden blood thread whip suddenly twisted and transformed into a golden python. This golden python had red eyes and sharp fangs as it opened its maw and wrapped itself around Chu Fei's body at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it had wrapped itself around Chu Fei 7 or 8 times before biting down on his neck. Chu Fei screamed, but before he could react, Yang Kai had already rushed forward, his entire body almost touching Chu Fei's. Raising his right fist, a 5-colored light flashed from it as it smashed down towards Chu Fei's face like a giant hammer. Chu Fei wanted to resist, but to his horror, he found that he was completely powerless in front of Yang Kai. The other party's strange golden python secret technique and pure territory domain made it impossible for him to even use his strength. Hong. With a muffled bang, Chu Fei was sent tumbling through the air several times before crashing to the ground. The audience went into an uproar. Everyone's hearts shook violently as they watched this one-sided battle with dumbfounded expressions. The battle between Yang Kai and Chu Fei started and ended quickly, almost in the blink of an eye. It was so fast that Liu Xianyun did not even have time to help. Only now did Liu Xianyun assume an offensive posture, but the moment Chu Fei was sent flying, she froze in place. She had no room to intervene at all. Shocked, her beautiful eyes trembled as she stared at Yang Kai. She was shocked to find that compared to Yang Kai in the Starlight Corridor, this man seemed to be much stronger. She had never doubted that Yang Kai was not Chu Fei's opponent. After all, this man had caused Yin Lisheng to suffer a big loss in the Starlight Corridor. Although Chu Fei was also a third-order Origin King, the strength in his body had not been fully transformed into source chi, so naturally, he could not be compared to Yin Lisheng. Yang Kai could make Yin Lisheng suffer, so naturally, defeating Chu Fei should not be a problem. However, she had not expected that Yang Kai's victory would come so easily. What part of his opponent was a third-order Origin King? If one were to say that he was a third-order Origin returning realm cultivator, many would believe it. Did this man really come from the territory of a low-class star? If they had not met in the Starlight Corridor, Liu Xianyun would not have believed this fact. Liu Xianyun was shocked, and so were the surrounding Blue Feather Sect disciples. Especially those who knew that Yang Kai was also an alchemist cultivator, they could not believe their eyes. One had to know that although alchemists also cultivated, because they spent a lot of time on alchemy, their cultivation would not be too high relative to their own level of alchemy. Yang Kai being able to refine an Origin King grade spirit pill and being an Origin King realm cultivator was already incredible, but now he had easily crushed his brother, a third-order Origin King, with just his second-order Origin King cultivation. That's right, the scene before his eyes could only be described with the word crushing. Yang Kai's bizarre performance had simply blinded their dog eyes. A disciple with such powerful combat strength, capable of crushing opponents above his realm, and proficient in alchemy, it was difficult for him not to be taken seriously. The surrounding Blue Feather Sect disciples looked at Yang Kai and could already foresee that after today, he would definitely receive the attention of the sect and be vigorously cultivated. As for injuring their brother, was that even a big deal in Blue Feather Sect? Many people were already thinking about how to build a good relationship with Yang Kai so that when he soared one day, they would be able to eat meat and drink soup. The other two Origin King Realm cultivator who had come with Chu Fei were pale at this moment. When Chu Fei and Yang Kai fought, they, like Liu Xianyun, wanted to help, but in the blink of an eye, Chu Fei was lying on the ground with a bloody nose and a swollen face. This scene was completely different from what they had expected. What they had expected was that Yang Kai would be severely taught a lesson by Chu Fei, beg for mercy, and allow them to do whatever they wanted. But the cruelty of reality left them with little ability to think. Yang Kai's sharp eyes drifted over, causing the two to involuntarily take a step back. One of them was a first-order Origin King, while the other was a second-order Origin King. Even if they joined forces, they were not Chu Fei's opponent, so how could they dare challenge Yang Kai? Fortunately, Yang Kai did not seem to have any intention of finding trouble with them and instead walked towards Chu Fei step by step, squinting his eyes and smiling. "Brother Chu, no discord, no concord. Now that we know each other, we can have a good talk about this brother Jiang and how he became the demon race." When Chu Fei heard this, he no longer dared to lie on the ground and play dead, quickly jumping up and shouting fiercely, "What do you want to do? Brother must be joking. This junior brother is new here, how could he dare do anything to you? Ian, I just want to talk to you." Yang Kai smiled very amiably, but in Chu Fei's eyes, this smile was like that of an evil ghost. Saying so, Yang Kai cracked his knuckles as he clenched his fists. Chu Fei's face was pale and his eye was bruised, one of his eyes swollen into a slit as he spat out bitterly, "I admit defeat this time, but don't push your luck. Push my luck." Yang Kai's eyes turned cold. "Brother insulted my reputation as an alchemist for no reason. If this matter is not resolved today, how can I perform alchemy here in the future? Then what do you want?" Chu Fei grit his teeth and asked. Chapter 1949. After realizing the gap between himself and Yang Kai, Chu Fei no longer had his previous arrogance, but in front of so many people, he did not want to tarnish his reputation. Otherwise, how could he raise his head in Blue Feather Sect in the future? So even if he was frightened, he could only throw the question back to Yang Kai. "It's very simple." Yang Kai looked at Chu Fei with a smile and raised a finger. "With senior brother causing such a ruckus, I'm afraid I won't be able to continue performing alchemy here in the future. Shouldn't senior brother compensate for my losses?" "Compensate for your losses?" Chu Fei's eyes almost bulged out of their sockets, never having expected Yang Kai to be so unscrupulous. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully. "Junior brother doesn't need much, just a few 100,000 source crystals should be enough." "A few 100,000, in your dreams?" Chu Fei immediately jumped up, his face twisting. "You really dare to ask for such an exorbitant price?" A few 100,000 source crystals was an amount Chu Fei did not even dare to imagine. Since he began cultivating, including all the source crystals he had spent so far, he only had a few 100,000 or 200,000. Yang Kai asking for a few 100,000, wasn't that the same as asking for his life? Yang Kai's face suddenly became cold as he snorted. "Brother, you don't have the slightest sincerity. It seems we can't continue this discussion, in that case." Before Yang Kai could finish speaking, he suddenly tilted his head and listened attentively, as if he had noticed something. Seeing this scene, Chu Fei smiled happily and laughed. "Junior brother, today's matter ends here. Brother will remember you, we will meet again someday." Looking at Yang Kai's expression, how could he not know that a master was sending a message to Yang Kai? Since a sect master had intervened, he was safe. Saying so, Chu Fei waved his hand. Turning to the other two, he shouted, "Let's go." The two did not dare to neglect and quickly lifted up junior brother Jiang, who was still struggling, before quickly leaving. "You want to leave after insulting my reputation?" How could there be such a cheap deal in this world? Yang Kai coldly snorted, causing Chu Fei to be shocked. When he turned his head, he saw Yang Kai rushing in front of him. His fist, which was shining with colorful light, was once again magnified in front of his eyes. The power of the condensed territory domain lingered around Chu Fei's body, completely suppressing his momentum, causing Chu Fei to only have time to cry out in shock. Yang Kai pressed him to the ground and beat him up. A third-order Origin King was not weak, and even if Chu Fei had not fully converted his Saint Qi into Source Qi, he would still be able to put up a desperate fight. However, after the previous confrontation with Yang Kai, Chu Fei knew that he was not this junior brother's opponent at all, so this time, he did not even try to resist. Instead, he simply pushed his Saint Qi to protect his vitals, allowing Yang Kai's fists to fall like raindrops. The onlooking cultivator was completely dumbfounded. A series of muffled bangs rang out. Occasionally, Chu Fei's miserable howls could be heard. By the time Yang Kai got up, Chu Fei was covered in blood and lying on the ground groaning. Obviously, his injuries were not light. Yang Kai turned his head, glanced in a certain direction, and cursed before calling out to Liu Xianyun, "Pack up." Liu Xianyun was startled. Finally recovering, she hurriedly followed Yang Kai back to their residence. Wherever the two passed, the Blue Feather Sect disciples took the initiative to make way for them, all of them staring at Yang Kai with fear in their eyes. Liu Xianyun followed behind Yang Kai, staring at his broad back in a daze, her thoughts flying. She had not expected that Yang Kai, who usually looked very peaceful, would be so ferocious when he went crazy. In the shopping district. If not for the fact that they were fellow disciples, Chu Fei would have been beaten to death by Yang Kai. However, after this incident, it was likely that they would no longer be able to go to the shopping district to perform alchemy in the future. This made Liu Xianyun feel a little regretful. After all, the two of them had made a lot of profit from alchemy in the past month. They had earned a lot of source crystals. Walking and walking, Kai Yang suddenly came to a halt. Liu Xianyun was caught off guard and almost bumped into his back. She quickly stopped and asked, "Brother Yang, what's wrong?" "You go back first, I have to go to the peak." Yang Kai turned back and said. "The peak?" Liu Xianyun frowned, but immediately reacted, "Protector Bien wants to see you." "Then the one who sent you a message just now?" "Ien," Yang Kai nodded, "it's a small matter, don't worry." "Do you want me to go with you?" Liu Xianyun asked. "Protector Bien didn't summon you, so I'm afraid you can't go up. You should go back first." Yang Kai finished speaking and walked straight to the peak. Liu Xianyun shouted from behind, "Be careful." Yang Kai didn't answer and just waved his hand. When he was halfway up the mountain, a figure appeared in front of him and stared at Yang Kai indifferently, a look of dissatisfaction on his face. "Brother Ku." Yang Kai looked indifferent and cupped his fists. The one who stopped him was Ku Wu. It was also Ku Wu who had sent him a message just now and told him to go to the top of the mountain to see Protector Bien. "Your courage isn't small, daring to disobey my orders. Didn't I tell you to let Chu Fei go? Why did you hit him?" Ku Wu coldly snorted. Yang Kai sneered and said, "Being bullied like this, why should I swallow my anger? Protector Bien's faction isn't so weak, is it? If that's the case, Brother Ku really disappoints me. How long have you been in the sect? What do you know? Do you think today's matter was just Chu Fei looking for trouble?" Ku Wu said coldly. "Of course I know he was instigated to come here." Yang Kai sneered, "I just want to make some source crystals by performing alchemy there. Who is blocking my path to wealth? Let me guess, is it Protector Zhu? And Protector Bien doesn't want to have any conflict with Protector Zhu? Is that why you want me to compromise?" Ku Wu looked at Yang Kai with some surprise and nodded, "You're not too stupid. Yes, although Chu Fei's actions were not directly ordered by Protector Zhu, it still involves the interests of Protector Zhu's faction. Alchemy is alchemy, so why don't you enter Treasure Source Hall? You should know that Treasure Source Hall is an alchemy hall set up by our faction in the market. If you enter there to perform alchemy, we can shelter you if something happens." Yang Kai spread his hands, "I'm poor. If I enter Treasure Source Hall, I'll have to pay 60% of my earnings." Brother, you know I just came to the star boundary, how can I not have some source crystals? That's a reasonable reason. Ku Wu knew that Yang Kai was telling the truth, so he didn't criticize him further, but you beat Chu Fei today, giving Protector Zhu an excuse to find fault with you. What if they decide to punish you according to the sect's rules? No matter what, Chu Fei is still your senior brother, what you're doing is disrespectful. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully, isn't that why Protector Bien called me over? I'm sure she'll deal with it properly. Ku Wu's face went black as he quickly said, don't mention the word elder in front of Protector Master, otherwise you'll lose your dog life. I understand, she's a woman. Yang Kai nodded. Forget it, come with me. I hope Protector Master is in a good mood today, otherwise, you'll be out of luck. Ku Wu shook his head and did not continue to reprimand him, instead leading Yang Kai towards the top of the mountain. Arriving at the same palace as before, Ku Wu led Yang Kai into a side room. The air in this room was sweet and fragrant, with pink furnishings everywhere, making it look like a woman's boudoir. Bian Yuqing was lazily reclining on a bench, her exquisite curves exposed, one hand supporting her cheek as she closed her eyes and dozed off, a leisurely posture that would arouse one's imagination. That chair was covered with a precious animal skin blanket, and beside her, there were several young women in their prime who were wearing revealing clothes. Some were gently fanning themselves with a fan, some were peeling grape-like spirit fruits and feeding them to Bian Yuqing's mouth, and some were kneeling on the ground and gently massaging Bian Yuqing's long and slender beautiful legs. When Yang Kai entered this place, the first thought that popped into his mind was extravagant. Ku Wu, as always, lowered his head and looked straight ahead at his feet before cupping his fists and saying, Protector Bien, I've brought that boy here. Greetings, Protector Master. Yang Kai did not look straight ahead like Ku Wu, but his eyes were clear and there was no trace of lust in them. Because he knew that a woman like Bian Yuqing was not someone he could touch right now, and if he even had the slightest bit of lust in his heart, she would teach him a harsh lesson. Hearing Yang Kai's voice, Bian Yuqing, who had been resting with her eyes closed, opened them slightly and swept Yang Kai with a sharp gaze, causing Yang Kai to feel uncomfortable all over, as if he had been cut by a knife, causing his skin to ache. Yang Kai's eyes met hers, and for a moment, he felt as if the other party's eyes had turned into bottomless vortexes, trying to pull his soul in and sink him forever. Startled, Yang Kai hurriedly bit the tip of his tongue and felt a tingling sensation, waking him up slightly. When he looked at her again, Bian Yuqing's eyes had returned to their original state without any ripples. Little one's courage isn't small, you've only been in the sect for a few days yet you dare cause trouble for this queen. Bian Yuqing's voice was soft and pleasant, but her tone was quite displeased. Protector Master is wise. Yang Kai resisted the uncomfortable pressure and quickly said, this disciple didn't cause trouble, but was bullied and humiliated, so I resisted. Resisted? Haha, I heard that you beat your brother so badly he doesn't even look human anymore. It will take him at least 3 months to recover. Is this what you mean by resisting? Bian Yuqing looked at Yang Kai faintly. Perhaps I was a little heavy-handed, but only in this way can others not dare to look down on Protector Master's branch. If this disciple had tolerated it, I'm afraid others would have thought our branch was weak and easily bullied. Oh! Bian Yuqing raised her brow and said with a smile, then according to what you said, this queen should gather all the disciples and praise you in front of everyone, using you as an example? This disciple is only doing his duty, Protector Master is too serious. Impudent! Bian Yuqing shouted and waved her hand, sending a huge force towards Yang Kai, directly knocking him into the wall. Master, please calm your anger. Ku Wu hurriedly tried to appease her. Unexpectedly, after Bian Yuqing flew into a rage, she began giggling, causing Ku Wu to be stunned, wondering what Bian Yuqing was feeling right now. Chapter 1950. Kai Yang and Bian Yuqing didn't have much contact. Besides this meeting, they had only met once before. When he first met Bian Yuqing, Yang Kai only felt that this woman was very strong. After all, she was a cultivator from the Third Order Dao Source realm, but as for her temperament, Yang Kai had no idea. However, this second meeting made Yang Kai understand that this woman was temperamental. She was extremely difficult to provoke. Her casual strike didn't contain too much strength, but it wasn't something that the current Kai Yang could contend against. After hitting the wall, he could only feel the blood in his chest tumbling, and his chest bones faintly aching. When he stood up, he heard Bian Yuqing's tender laughter. Yang Kai clutched his chest and stared at Bian Yuqing intently. The latter's pair of beautiful eyes stared at Yang Kai, a hint of approval flashing across her eyes as she nodded lightly. This queen likes men with backbone. Your performance was not bad, at least you didn't ruin this queen's reputation. Yang Kai frowned but did not answer. However, Bian Yuqing suddenly changed the topic. Today's matter can be big or small. This queen does not want to give Zhu Junshan an excuse to find trouble with this queen. After all, you have only been in the sect for a month, yet you dared to offend your superiors. This queen's fault for not teaching you properly. How about this? You go to Ice Cliff for 3 months and today's matter will be forgotten. She spoke very casually, but Yang Kai felt something was wrong and quickly asked, "Dare I ask, Master Protector, this Ice Cliff, what kind of place is it?" He had been in Blue Feather Sect for more than a month but had never heard of this Ice Cliff. Ice Cliff. Bian Yuqing smiled sweetly. "Ian, it's a place where disciples who make mistakes are imprisoned. The environment there. Haha, you'll know when you see it." Yang Kai's face couldn't help sinking. Ku Wu turned his head and glanced at him, his eyes full of sympathy, as if Ice Cliff was a very bad place. "Take him away." Bian Yuqing waved her hand casually. She closed her beautiful eyes again. "Disciple will take his leave now." Ku Wu respectfully retreated, pulling a Yang Kai with him as he left. Yang Kai was full of questions, but when he saw Bian Yuqing's expression, he knew that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of her. He could only leave with Ku Wu. After leaving the palace, Ku Wu let out a sigh of relief. Every time he met Bian Yuqing, he felt a great deal of pressure. "Brother Ku." Yang Kai turned to look at Ku Wu. "Hey, junior brother Yang." Ku Wu sighed and patted Yang Kai's shoulder, saying earnestly, "Don't ask, you'll know when you get there. Big brother can only say that the master of the Dharma Protector is exceptionally generous this time. After all, it's not a long time. 3 months, it'll be over in a casual closed-door meditation. When the time comes, Big brother will personally pick you up." Hearing what he said, Yang Kai felt even more uncomfortable, becoming more certain that this ice cliff was not a good place to be. However, unless he could kill his way out of Blue Feather Sect now, he would not be able to escape. He could only obediently follow Ku Wu to the ice cliff. Silently calculating his strength in his heart, Yang Kai could only hide his depression in the bottom of his heart. Ku Wu once again summoned his ship-like flight-type artifact, and after the two of them boarded, it flew off in a certain direction at an extremely fast speed. Looking down from above, the buildings of Blue Feather Sect seemed to be passing by at an incredible speed. The further they went, the more Yang Kai could feel the chill in the air. At a certain moment, Ku Wu suddenly pointed to the front and said, "Junior brother Yang, that's the ice cliff, the place where all the disciples of the sect who make mistakes will be imprisoned. They will all be thrown there. En. Don't even think about running away. Although this place is not close to the headquarters and there is no one within a 10,000-kilometer radius, if you leave the ice cliff without permission, the master of the Dharma Protector will know, at that time." Ku Wu did not finish his words. How could Yang Kai not understand what he meant? Gently nodding, Yang Kai looked up ahead. Somewhere in front of him, white clouds swirled around, making it impossible to see the real scenery. Yang Kai could only vaguely make out a towering mountain peak, but this peak seemed to have been split in half from the middle. The cut was neat and tidy, and there was a chasm in the middle that made it seem daunting. After arriving here, the chill in the air became more and more obvious. Even with the protection of the ship, Yang Kai could feel the biting cold. What's more, there seemed to be another kind of aura mixed with this chill that was both familiar and unfamiliar to him. Yang Kai frowned and thought for a long time before suddenly calling out, "Emperor pressure?" Ku Wu looked at Yang Kai in surprise and asked in amazement, "Junior brother Yang, you can actually perceive the presence of Emperor pressure here? Have you encountered an Emperor Realm Master before?" If one had not encountered an Emperor Realm Master before, it was impossible to know what Emperor pressure was like. When Ku Wu first came here, He only felt that the coldness here was extremely uncomfortable, as if it had a natural suppressive force on cultivators, but he did not understand why. It was not until Bian Yu Qing explained it to him that Ku Wu understood the reason behind it. Yang Kai was a second-order origin king from the territory of a low-level star, yet he was able to determine that the chill in front of him contained emperor pressure. This was not something that could be explained by profound eyesight. The only possibility was that Yang Kai had experienced emperor pressure before. There is a restricted area in the territory of the Great Desolate Star where emperor pressure remains. I have felt it before. Yang Kai replied casually. So that's how it is. Ku Wu did not doubt him and nodded. There are many guardians in the territory of low-level stars, each of whom is a high-level emperor realm master. Perhaps the guardian of your Great Desolate Star territory left some traces in that restricted area. But why is there emperor pressure here? Yang Kai asked suspiciously. Ku Wu smiled slightly. This is related to the origin of Ice Cliff. It is rumored that the birth of this ice cliff is related to an Emperor Realm Master who can control ice principles. This ice cliff was created by that master with a single slash of his sword. The ice cliff is surrounded by that Emperor Realm Master's ice concept and has not dissipated even after 10,000 years. Why else do you think Ice Cliff became the place where the disciples of my Blue Feather sect are imprisoned? This place was created by an Emperor Realm Master with a single slash of his sword. Yang Kai's eyes lit up. Everyone in the sect says so, but I don't know if it's true or not, Ku Wu chuckled. Junior brother, when you get there, try to stay at the top of the ice cliff as much as possible. Don't go too deep. The deeper you go, the stronger the Emperor Realm ice concept will become. Even the sect master and the 4 protectors can't reach the bottom. With your ability, you won't be able to compete with the Emperor pressure. If you go too deep, it will only lead to disaster. I understand. Many thanks for Brother Ku's warning. Yang Kai nodded. In addition, the Master Protector didn't just confine you. Although the environment of this ice cliff is harsh, making it impossible for ordinary people to stay here for long, if you can comprehend something here, you will benefit immensely. Don't disappoint Lord Protector's kind intentions. Ku Wu's words were sincere and earnest. Really? Yang Kai grinned. In that case, brother shouldn't go back. How about we go together to comprehend the heavenly way and martial Tao? No need. Ku Wu's expression became serious as obvious fear appeared in his eyes. I came to this damned place once before and stayed there for a month. I almost didn't make it back. What was brother's cultivation when you came here at that time? Third Order Origin King, Ku Wu replied. Yang Kai suddenly curled his lips. The Master Protector really thinks highly of me. This means that the Master Protector thinks your potential is greater than mine. Ku Wu chuckled and formed a seal with his hand, causing the ship to stop moving forward. He then turned to Yang Kai and said, Brother will send you off here. Go on your own, I'll pick you up in 3 months. Yang Kai nodded and didn't say anything more, jumping off the ship and rushing straight towards the top of the ice cliff. After Yang Kai left, Ku Wu immediately drove the ship away from this damned place. The bone-piercing cold seemed to penetrate deep into one's soul, not only hindering the flow of one's qi but also affecting one's thoughts, giving one the illusion that even their mind was frozen. The hot breath he exhaled was clearly visible and thick like a fog. As soon as Yang Kai landed at the top of the ice cliff, he involuntarily circulated his qi to resist the pervasive cold, finally feeling a little better. The space above the ice cliff was as spacious as a flat piece of land, but near the rock face, there were a number of large and small holes. Obviously, these were simple caves excavated by the Blue Feather sect disciples who had been imprisoned for many years. Yang Kai stood in place and looked around. He found that there was not a single blade of grass growing on this ice cliff, making it look extremely desolate. Even the rocks had been frozen into ice. Although there was a faint trace of emperor pressure here that contained extremely profound ice principles, it was not obvious, so it was relatively easy for Yang Kai to resist it with his current strength. If Su Yang were here. The beautiful figure of Su Yang suddenly appeared in Yang Kai's mind. If she were here, this ice cliff would not be an unbearable forbidden area, but instead a blessed land. This place contained an emperor's ice principles, which would provide an unimaginable boost to her cultivation speed. As long as she could comprehend the mysteries of these principles and condense her own concepts, her growth time would be greatly reduced. Unfortunately, Su Yang was still on Shadowed Star. As for Yang Kai himself, he didn't cultivate the ice attribute, so he could only sigh. Shaking his head, Yang Kai dispelled the thoughts and confusion in his mind. After familiarizing himself with this empty and desolate environment, Yang Kai went directly to the rock face, drilled into one of the cave mansions, and began to inspect it. Since he was going to stay here for 3 months, he naturally had to first determine if there was anyone alive here. If there was a fellow disciple who had also been thrown into solitary confinement here, Yang Kai felt that it would be better to inform them first. After a quick investigation, Yang Kai determined that there was no one alive here except for himself. However, there were more than a dozen dead people. These dead people were scattered in different cave mansions, each of them in a cross-legged meditative posture. Their appearances were lifelike and their expressions were extremely serene, as if they had not suffered any torture or pain at all. Instead, it was as if they had lost their vitality in a deep sleep. Chapter 1951. This discovery caused Yang Kai's heart to tremble. Because this was the true danger of this ice cliff. The omnipresent ice domain could erode a cultivator's mind, causing them to unknowingly lose their life. This was why the dead cultivator could maintain a serene demeanor, showing no signs of struggle or pain. After inspecting the cave mansion, Yang Kai thought about it for a moment before directly jumping off the ice cliff. Although Ku Wu had repeatedly warned Yang Kai not to enter the depths of this ice cliff, since there was such a rare emperor pressure here, Yang Kai naturally wanted to experience it. Back when he was comprehending this emperor pressure in the dead territory outside Shadowed Star, he had gained a lot. Yang Kai now had his own way of dealing with the suppression of this emperor pressure. However, he did not dare to act recklessly and instead controlled his speed as he slowly descended. As Ku Wu said, the further down he went, the stronger the emperor pressure became and the more terrifying the ice domain it contained became. After descending less than 1,000 meters, Yang Kai was already struggling. Even if he used all of his strength, he was unable to resist the bone-chilling cold. Even circulating his source chi was difficult for him to do so. In desperation, Yang Kai could only push his territory field. When his territory field was formed, it was also under the suppression of the emperor pressure from the Emperor Garden. The Emperor Garden's emperor pressure was even stronger than this place. As such, his territory field had a certain degree of resistance to this emperor pressure. As soon as his territory field appeared, Yang Kai felt much more relaxed. He quietly released his divine sense to explore the bottom, wanting to find out how deep this ice cliff was. However, very soon, Yang Kai withdrew his divine sense in shock. Because he noticed that the icy concept and energy of the laws had actually frozen the divine sense he'd released, and if he hadn't withdrawn it in time, his divine sense would have been damaged. After being aware of this, Yi Zichen said. Yang Kai no longer dared to release his divine sense. Down below was a dark abyss, like the maw of a great beast, causing one's heart to tremble. Continuing to descend another 1,000 meters, Yang Kai heard a series of cracking sounds from outside his body. That was a sign that the territory was about to reach its limit. If he continued to dive deeper, his territory field would inevitably collapse. At that time, with just Yang Kai's own strength, he would not be able to resist the emperor pressure and ice concept at this depth of several thousand feet. Only death awaited him. This was his limit. Yang Kai understood and didn't try to be brave. Instead, he lifted his body and flew upwards. This was an investigation. Although he gained nothing, Yang Kai knew that this was indeed a good place to train his will. In a way, he had to thank that Bian Yuqing. He didn't fly to the top of the ice cliff. Instead, he chose to carve out an immortal's cave 1,000 feet away from the top. This was the most suitable location for his current strength. The Emperor's pressure and concept of ice here were at a level that he could barely contend with. Cultivating in seclusion in such a location would be of great benefit to one's growth. Carving out an immortal's cave took Yang Kai quite a bit of effort. The ice cliff had been immersed in this special icy environment for many years, and the rock walls had long been corroded by the emperor pressure and principal strength. They were no longer ordinary rock, but extremely solid ice. It took Kai Yang a full 3 days to carve out a simple cave dwelling. And this cave residence was only the size of 2 rooms. Yang Kai didn't rush to enter retreat and instead sat cross-legged in the cave, recovering while resisting the harsh environment. Fortunately, he had been helping others with alchemy some time ago. He had accumulated a lot of Origin King-grade spirit pills and source crystals. As such, his recovery speed was quite fast. Yang Kai spent a few more days adjusting his state to its peak before he began to deal with the most important matter at hand. Breakthrough. His strength had reached the peak of the second-order Origin King realm, and his comprehension of the martial Tao and heavenly way was almost enough. After coming to the star boundary and entering the Blue Feather sect, he had the qualifications to break through. However, he wasn't in a hurry to do so. Firstly, he didn't want to stand out too much. He was now under the eaves of others, so it was always right to be careful. Secondly, he wanted to accumulate as much as he could to make this breakthrough smoother. Most importantly, he didn't have a suitable place to do so. Although he had a residence in the Blue Feather sect and could use his identity token to activate the barrier around it to prevent ordinary cultivators from spying on him, he absolutely couldn't prevent Bian Yuqing's divine sense from inspecting him. Yang Kai didn't want to expose his secrets. This was not Shadowed Star. On Shadowed Star, he was the master and could easily find a secluded place where no one would disturb him. Yang Kai originally wanted to stay in the Blue Feather sect for a while and gain Bian Yuqing's trust before leaving the sect temporarily to find a suitable place to enter secluded retreat and break through. However, this trip to the ice cliff gave him a different idea. Wasn't this ice cliff a very good place to break through? Within a 10,000-kilometer radius, there was no one and the emperor pressure and principal strength permeated the air. Even if he made a commotion during his breakthrough, it would not spread too far. After 3 months, when he broke through to the third-order Origin King realm and returned to the Blue Feather sect, if Bian Yuqing asked, he would have a good explanation. At that time, he would simply tell her that he had comprehended something while in retreat at the ice cliff. He believed she wouldn't ask too much. After all, a third-order Origin King was nothing to her. For various reasons, Yang Kai felt that his breakthrough was inevitable. Yang Kai had thought a lot about how to break through to the third-order Origin King realm in the past few years and had a plan in mind. Inside his secluded home, Yang Kai sat cross-legged, surrounded by the source crystals he had earned during this period. Roughly counting, there were at least 30,000 pieces. These were all the source crystals Yang Kai had now. Even if he was an Origin King-grade alchemist, he had been helping others perform alchemy for more than a month, so source crystals were not easy to earn. However, 30,000 low-rank source crystals should be enough to support his breakthrough this time. Yang Kai was not in a hurry to break through to the next realm and instead sat in this cold environment, recalling his life's journey on the martial Tao. Learning from High Heaven Pavilion, walking step by step from a trial disciple, experiencing countless hardships. Along the way, there were beauties accompanying him, so he was not lonely. Yang Kai had not grown up for long, and among all the Origin King realm cultivators, he was quite young, but his life experience was rich and varied, not much worse than those old monsters who had lived for hundreds or thousands of years. Scenes from over the years replayed in Yang Kai's mind, as if they were just yesterday, the excitement and danger still vivid in his mind. Yang Kai's mood was as tranquil as an ancient well. Time passed slowly, and Yang Kai forgot everything. The cold world principles lingered around his body, invading his flesh and penetrating his 5 viscera and 6 organs. Inside the secluded home, Yang Kai's hair and beard gradually turned white, as if he had been frozen. His vitality gradually weakened, and even his breathing and heartbeat became slower and slower. He gradually became like the dozen or so Blue Feather sect disciples who had died, as if he was walking towards the end of his life in the cold. But inside his body, earth-shaking changes were taking place. In his lower abdomen, a mixture of source qi and saint qi exploded violently. Yang Kai's physique and vitality also scattered and condensed in the dantian region of his abdomen, catalyzing a magical transformation there. The biggest difference between a second-order origin king cultivator and a third-order cultivator was not the conversion ratio of source chi to saint chi. Even if a cultivator did not have any source chi, they could still break through to the third-order origin king realm. The difference between the two was the origin essence crystal. Only by condensing one's own origin essence crystal could one truly become a third-order origin king cultivator. The origin essence crystal was the essence of a cultivator, containing all of the cultivator's insights into the martial Tao and heavenly way. It was similar to the nature of the monster core in the monster beast's body. A monster beast could use its monster core to stimulate its own secret techniques, improving their lethality and power. A cultivator above the third-order origin king realm could also do so. The origin essence crystal was the manifestation of a cultivator's insights into the heavenly way and martial Tao. When facing an enemy, the power of one's attacks would be even stronger. In a moment of crisis, one could even directly summon their origin essence crystal and perish together with their enemy, just like a monster beast summoning its monster core. There was no difference between the two. However, if one wanted to condense their own origin essence crystal, they would first need to figure out what kind of attribute they were cultivating. An origin essence crystal was not omnipotent. Its existence could often only enhance a cultivator's strength in a certain aspect, unable to cover everything. For example, when Yang Kai first entered the martial Tao, he cultivated a Yang attribute secret art. Later, he could become the demon race, transforming the strength in his body into a demonic flame. Even the golden blood threads and 5 elements indestructible sword chi he cultivated could be condensed into his own origin essence crystal. However, once chosen, the origin essence crystal could only enhance one aspect of one's strength. If Yang Kai condensed his own insights into the 5 elements indestructible sword chi into an origin essence crystal, the power of his 5 elements indestructible sword chi would be greatly increased in the future. Choosing the golden blood threads would be the same, however, Yang Kai did not intend to do so. His origin essence crystal would naturally bear the brunt of the Tao of space. The Tao of space was mysterious and difficult to defend against, far superior to any other attribute. Since Yang Kai was proficient in the Tao of space, he naturally wanted to focus on this aspect. This was an idea he had never changed. This was also why he did not dare to break through in Blue Feather Sect at will. This was his trump card. Bian Yuqing still did not know he cultivated the Tao of space, so if it was exposed during his breakthrough, it would likely immediately attract the attention of the elders of Blue Feather Sect. Even in the vast star boundary, the Tao of space was a force few people were proficient in. In his lower abdomen, a mixture of source chi and saint chi continued to gather and slowly condense, accompanied by an unimaginable pain. At the same time, in his knowledge sea, Yang Kai's own perception and understanding of the Tao of space were transforming into an invisible force that cleansed his knowledge sea. Yang Kai's soul was unprecedentedly calm as he focused all his consciousness on his body. Amidst this wondrous state, the ethereal Tao of space flowed out, but Yang Kai was unaware of it and instead focused on perceiving the essence of this force, slowly comprehending it. Time passed quickly and silently. Gradually, extremely obvious fluctuations of space force emerged from Yang Kai's body, shattering the layer of frost covering his body. Chapter 1952. 1,000 meters deep inside the ice cliff, inside the secluded cave, extremely obvious space force fluctuations appeared, forming a clear territory that enveloped the entire cave. Cracking sounds rang out as the space around Yang Kai became unstable. Numerous tiny spatial rifts slowly took form, and they were like nimble fishes swimming freely in the water before they were annihilated under the self-repair of the laws of the heavens and earth. This cycle repeated endlessly. Later, the tiny void cracks began to connect, forming extremely terrifying void cracks. The surrounding space was like a piece of cloth that had been cut open by a sharp sword, leaving countless scars on its surface. The chaotic turbulence of the void continued to surge about, causing the small secluded cave to be riddled with scars and gravel. At the same time, a dazzling light of stars suddenly appeared on Yang Kai's body. These specks of starlight, like fireflies, dotted his skin. This starlight was what Yang Kai had absorbed in the starlight corridor before, but was unable to integrate it into his physical body and instead stored in his knowledge sea. Affected by Yang Kai's breakthrough, this starlight emerged on its own initiative, turning into a magical catalyst that allowed the Saint Qi in Yang Kai's body to transform into Source Qi. If someone else were standing nearby at this moment, they would likely be able to tell at a glance that Yang Kai was a Star Master. After all, the phenomenon on his body was too obvious, so it was difficult for anyone not to associate it with him. Majestic strength poured out of his body like a magnificent tsunami, but Yang Kai was completely unaware of it, completely immersed in his comprehension of the Tao of space. A series of large and small void black holes formed around him, a direct manifestation of Yang Kai's secret technique. A series of pitch-black crescent-shaped attacks shot out in all directions. These were the effects of his moon blades. In terms of cultivating the Tao of space, Yang Kai had comprehended two secret techniques on his own, and at this moment, he had reached the point of condensing them. A metallic clanging sound came from his lower abdomen, as if something was suddenly born there. All of Yang Kai's insights and understanding of the Tao of space in this life converged into this newly born object. The origin essence crystal was formed. At the same time, Yang Kai's own momentum rose sharply. Clap, 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 clap. The source crystals he had arranged in advance seemed to be attracted by some kind of mysterious force and suddenly exploded. Rich heaven and earth energy filled the cave, and Yang Kai's body seemed to have become a bottomless pit, crazily absorbing the heaven and earth energy, filling his body. The shackles of the peak of the second-order origin king realm were broken in an instant, allowing Yang Kai's cultivation to smoothly reach the next level. But this wasn't the end. He continued to absorb the pure energy contained in the shattered source crystals, stabilizing his current cultivation base. It made his foundation even more solid. As for Yang Kai himself, he wasn't paying attention to his own realm at all. All of his attention was still immersed in comprehending the power of space. Yang Kai suddenly discovered that he now had a new understanding of the obscure aspects of the Tao of space that he had not understood before. Another brand new secret technique vaguely appeared in his mind. He was overjoyed. On the surface, however, he remained calm and collected as he focused on comprehending the secret technique. He wanted to break through the bottleneck that prevented him from comprehending the secret technique and reveal this brand new secret technique. Time flew by, and a month and a half passed. During this time, Yang Kai had not moved at all. The 30,000 source crystals he had arranged around him had long been consumed, and his realm had stabilized at the third-order origin king realm. Although he had not completely transformed his Saint Qi into Source Qi yet, this was not something that could be done overnight. Instead, it required the accumulation of time. But when he opened his eyes again, his whole person seemed to have become a little different from before. In his eyes, there was a faint illusory power, and with every movement he made, he seemed to be able to cause space to distort. Is this the new secret technique? Yang Kai muttered to himself. With a thought, he suddenly disappeared from where he stood. This was not the teleportation of a space secret technique. Because Yang Kai did not move at all, still sitting cross-legged, but if one used their divine sense to scan him, they would not be able to discover his existence at all. With his current third-order origin king realm strength, using this secret technique was enough to deceive an ordinary Tao source realm cultivator. But if one were to look with their naked eyes, they would still be able to vaguely see a transparent figure, motionless like water ripples. This was a kind of concealment secret technique. Yang Kai had fused himself with the void to create a unique concealment secret technique. After pondering for a while, Yang Kai grinned. Let's call it nihility. Different from exile and moonblade, nihility was not a secret technique for combat, but rather a concealment secret technique. To a certain extent, it was several times more precious than exile and moonblade because only by preserving one's life would one have the strength to fight again. However, Yang Kai vaguely felt that nihility was not just a concealment secret technique, it also had another function. As for how effective this function was, it still needed to be tested. After more than a month of secluded cultivation and achieving all his goals, Yang Kai was in a very good mood. He closed his eyes and began to examine his condition. Sinking his divine sense into his lower abdomen, Yang Kai soon discovered that in the dantian region of his lower abdomen, there was a hexagonal crystal. This was his origin essence crystal, a manifestation of all his insights into the Tao of space. To put it bluntly, if this origin essence crystal was obtained by someone and they comprehended all the mysteries contained within it, they would be able to obtain Yang Kai's understanding of the Tao of space and use all of Yang Kai's secret techniques. This was Yang Kai's most precious treasure right now. This was not the first time he had seen an origin essence crystal. Back then, he had found an origin essence crystal in Liu Yang's desert. At that time, he didn't know what it was, but it was later confirmed to be the origin essence crystal of the insect emperor. However, it was swallowed by the soul-warming lotus, allowing the soul-warming lotus to evolve into its 7-colored form. Later, in the blood prison of Green Mountain Star, Yang Kai found the origin essence crystal of Mad Crocodile Monster King and even obtained one from Purple Star's vault. The shape of origin essence crystals seemed to be similar, hexagonal crystals, but their colors were quite different. Regardless of what color the origin essence crystals of others were, Yang Kai's origin essence crystal was pitch black, a darkness that seemed capable of swallowing everything in its path. This color also matched his space force, which made Yang Kai very satisfied. The more he looked at it, the more he liked it. Withdrawing his attention, Yang Kai checked the ratio of his own realm to his source chi conversion. Naturally, there was no need to mention his realm. Condensing his own origin essence crystal meant that Yang Kai had broken through to the third-order origin king realm. However, the conversion of his source chi made Yang Kai very dissatisfied. It was only half of what it should be. Although he had been condensing his origin essence crystal before, he was well aware of his own situation. When the starlight actively poured out of his knowledge sea and acted as a catalyst to transform his Saint Chi, he was naturally aware of it. But now, the starlight in his knowledge sea was almost exhausted, yet the Saint Chi in his body had not been completely transformed into source chi, which made him very depressed. This was also the reason why he did not understand the situation of the star boundary. If he knew that even if he was a star master and absorbed enough starlight in the starlight corridor, it would take him several years to transform all his Saint Chi into source chi after entering the star boundary, he would definitely not think so. For example, Yin Lesheng spent 5 years in the starlight corridor to transform all his Saint Chi into source chi. He was also a star master. Rou was also a star master, so if there were no accidents, it would take him at least 5 or 6 years to transform his Saint Chi. The cultivator who came from the territory of a low-level star and was not a star master were even more miserable. It was normal for it to take 10 years, and it was possible for it to take 20 to 30 years. Even 40 to 50 years was not considered much. A few decades was nothing for an origin king realm cultivator. The transformation of source chi could make a cultivator stronger and stronger, so even if their realm did not change, the strength a cultivator could display would gradually increase. However, it took Yang Kai less than 3 months to transform more than half of his Saint Chi into source chi. This kind of incredible speed was almost unprecedented. Today's Yang Kai was more than twice as strong as he was a month and a half ago. After all, his realm had risen by a minor realm and the proportion of source chi he could transform had increased significantly. There isn't much starlight catalyst left in my knowledge sea. What should I do if I want to continue transforming source chi in the future? Right. I heard some people say some time ago that there is a source condensing pill that has a similar effect to starlight. Should I refine some source condensing pills? Yang Kai touched his chin and muttered to himself. Source condensing pills, as the name suggested, were spirit pills specifically used to transform the Saint Chi in a cultivator's body into source chi. They could only be taken by an origin king realm cultivator and were an origin king grade high-rank spirit pill. Although their effects were not as good as starlight, they were the most commonly used auxiliary spirit pills for origin king realm cultivators. However, Yang Kai had only heard of the name of this spirit pill and did not have the pill recipe, so he did not know what materials were needed to refine it. Yang Kai secretly decided that after this seclusion was over, he would go to the market and see if he could collect the source condensing pill recipe. There were many other pill recipes as well. There was a wide variety of pill recipes in the star boundary, far more than those on Homestar's territory. Collecting some right now could be considered a precaution as they might come in handy in the future. However, collecting pill recipes also required a large number of source crystals. Thinking of his empty space ring, Yang Kai felt a headache coming on. He had never expected that he, who was extremely wealthy in Homestar territory, would become so poor in the star boundary. Putting away the chaotic thoughts in his mind, Yang Kai stood up. As he stood up, the layer of frost that had condensed on his body began to fall. Yang Kai patted it casually, but in the next moment, he suddenly frowned before a look of joy appeared on his face. He found that his ability to resist the harsh cold around him was much stronger than before. At that time, Yang Kai had chosen this location to open a secluded home because he could barely resist the harsh environment here. He wanted to temper his will here. But now, he found that the harsh cold around him could not affect him at all. Obviously, because his strength had improved, his resistance to the harsh environment had greatly increased. Chapter 1953. There was still some time before the 3-month confinement ended, and Yang Kai had nothing urgent to deal with now, so his mind couldn't help becoming active. Arriving at the entrance of the secluded home, Yang Kai looked down and saw nothing but darkness. A month and a half ago, he could only go less than 5,000 meters down this ice cliff before he had to return, which showed just how harsh the environment here was. Now that his strength had increased a lot, he was interested in testing his limits. In addition, if he could stay in the Emperor pressure and ice principles for a long time, it would be of great benefit to his will and state of mind. Not to mention, if he encountered any Dao Source Realm masters in the future, he would not be suppressed by them. Yang Kai could withstand Emperor pressure, so how could he be afraid of Dao Source Realm cultivators? Considering all this, Yang Kai no longer hesitated and jumped down. Just like before, the deeper he went, the stronger the Emperor pressure became and the crueler the remaining ice principles became. The omnipresent cold seeped into Yang Kai's body and knowledge sea, becoming a great hindrance to him. Yang Kai's speed was not fast, but he was testing his bottom line little by little. 3,000 meters, safe and sound. 5,000 meters, still bearable. 8,000 meters, somewhat difficult. After reaching 1,000 meters or so, Yang Kai found it a little difficult to continue. After breaking through a minor realm, transforming so much of his source chi, and condensing his own origin essence crystal, he could only dive 5,000 meters further than before. Yang Kai shook his head, realizing more and more how terrifying an Emperor Realm Master was. According to his current level, 1,000 meters was his limit. Just as he was about to stop at this position. Just as he was about to dig out a new Immortal's cave nearby to temper himself, a thought suddenly flashed in his mind that made him excited. I wonder if Nihility can resist the ice principles. As soon as he thought of it, Yang Kai immediately acted. Immediately, he displayed the new secret technique he had just comprehended. In an instant, he disappeared from where he stood, leaving behind only a transparent, almost imperceptible afterimage. Like ripples in water. After using the Nihility secret technique, Yang Kai immediately felt that the terrifying Emperor pressure and ice concept that had been wreaking havoc around him had disappeared. There was no longer any pressure in the place where he was at. It was really effective. However, before Yang Kai could be pleasantly surprised, he discovered a new problem. After using his secret technique Nihility, Yang Kai could indeed ignore the Emperor pressure and ice principles in this place, but in just 2 breaths of time, the omnipresent Emperor pressure and ice principles had destroyed his secret technique. He let his figure reappear. The pressure that surged like the sea arrived as expected. Standing there, Yang Kai frowned, thinking about the reason. Soon, he had some insight. His secret technique relied on the power of space to perform, fusing his body with the void, thus creating blind spots for vision and divine sense. Because he had fused with the void. He had deceived the surrounding emperor's might and ice laws, which was why he could ignore their suppression. But the secret technique Nihility was not omnipotent. After all, his realm was too low and he could not control the emperor pressure and ice principles at all. Under the collision of the two forces, his control of space principles was naturally inferior to the emperor pressure and ice principles, which was why he was exposed. In other words, as long as there was an attack that surpassed his own strength, they could break his Nihility secret technique. Yang Kai understood. This was inevitable. He was not the slightest bit frustrated. Instead, he felt that this drawback was natural. There was no secret technique in this world that could not be broken. In the end, it was still a matter of one's own strength. But if that was the case, Yang Kai grinned and once again used his nihility secret technique. Immediately after, his figure flickered and he used teleport. The next moment, he dived down another 500 meters, and soon, the surrounding emperor pressure and ice principles broke his nihility secret technique. However, at the same time his figure appeared, before the surrounding terrifying forces could suppress him, he once again used nihility, merging himself into the void and avoiding the violent murderous intent. Repeating this process, Yang Kai dived down at an extremely fast speed, completely forgetting the dangerous environment he was in. His original intention was just to test the effect of his nihility secret technique, but in the heat of the moment, he dived deeper and deeper. By the time he reacted, he had already gone down who knew how many meters. Recovering from his shock, Yang Kai could not help breaking out in a cold sweat. Looking up, he could only see a ray of light. How could he dare to be negligent? He instinctively wanted to leave this damned place quickly, lest he make a mistake and be buried here, which would be a real joke. But just as he was about to leave, from the corner of his eye, he suddenly noticed something. Somewhere down below, a little fluorescent light flickered slightly. What is it? Yang Kai kept using nihility while turning his head to look down. A moment later, another fluorescent light flickered in that same location. Yang Kai confirmed that his eyes were not playing tricks on him and that there was indeed something there. After pondering for a while, he used teleportation again and dived down. However, this time, to his surprise, he found that he had reached the bottom of the ice cliff without even realizing it. In the deepest part of the ice cliff, the emperor pressure and ice attribute domain would definitely be fatal to an ordinary Dao Source Realm master. Even masters from the third order Dao Source Realm would not be able to reach this place. Ku Wu had said before that in Blue Feather Sect, the sect master and the 4 great protectors had all come to explore this ice cliff, but unfortunately, no one had been able to reach the bottom. However, the nihility secret technique had given Yang Kai the ability to temporarily protect himself and successfully reach this place that no one had visited for 10,000 years. The source of the light was not too far from him, so Yang Kai carefully moved while remaining vigilant of his surroundings, lest some kind of murderous intent suddenly descend. After a while, he arrived at the source of the light. The light at the bottom of the ice cliff was very dim, but Yang Kai was not an ordinary person, so his eyesight was not affected. Looking around, he could not help but light up. Not far in front of him, there was a strange ice flower-like object. This ice flower seemed to have been carved out of ice and was crystal clear, without the slightest impurity. At the very top of this strange object, there were 3 small fruits. These fruits were not big, each about the size of a pigeon's egg, but they also looked crystal clear and gave off a faint glow, making them look unreal. When Yang Kai first saw this, he subconsciously thought that this was not a spirit flower or exotic fruit, but rather a real ice sculpture. However, he soon realized that he was wrong because there was a faint fragrance in the air. It was the unique fragrance of spirit fruits. It was slightly cool, and it made people feel refreshed. This was obviously a genuine spirit flower or exotic fruit. In this terrifying environment at the bottom of the ice cliff, Yang Kai did not dare to release his divine sense, but he could still perceive that this ice flower and the 3 ice fruits contained extremely powerful energy. If a cultivator who cultivated ice attribute secret chi were to obtain these things, it would be no less than a peerless treasure. It was very likely that these fruits were born because of the emperor pressure and ice attribute secret chi here. Yang Kai quickly made a guess in his heart. A spirit flower or exotic fruit that was born in this kind of place would have an unimaginable value. Because it was immersed in this special environment all year round, whether it was the flower or the fruit, it was certain to contain emperor pressure and ice attribute secret chi. Whether it was used for alchemy or swallowed, it was very likely that a cultivator would be able to comprehend the divine technique of the Emperor Realm Master. A priceless treasure. Yang Kai could not help breathing a little faster, almost failing to use nihility in time, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. After stabilizing his emotions, Yang Kai squatted down and with a thought, circulated his 5 elements indestructible sword qi. In an instant, Yang Kai's right hand was wrapped in a crimson flame. This was the power of his fire sword qi. If he wanted to pick this kind of treasure, it was impossible to not take some precautions. The only thing he could think of was to use his fire sword qi to restrain the ice attribute secret qi contained in this spirit flower or exotic fruit. However, Yang Kai still underestimated the horror of this thing. When his hand touched the stem of the ice flower, the crimson flame actually trembled slightly and was almost extinguished on the spot. At the same time, an indescribable chill spread from his fingers to his arm. At a speed visible to the naked eye, Yang Kai's arm was covered in a layer of frost. Yang Kai was shocked and without even thinking about it, he shouted, "Dragon transformation!" Accompanied by a resounding dragon roar, a golden dragon phantom suddenly appeared behind Yang Kai. The dragon phantom flashed and disappeared, while Yang Kai's right arm transformed into a dragon claw in an instant. Dragon scales covered his arm, giving it a terrifying appearance. Yang Kai grabbed the ice flower and pulled it up with all his might, not daring to linger in his hand any longer, and simply threw it into the sealed world bead. The next moment, he used his heart to sense the situation inside the sealed world bead. Inside the sealed world bead, the huge embodiment that had been meditating leisurely opened its eyes. Yang Kai had left a wisp of his soul clone inside the embodiment, so it was completely free to move around. The mountain-like body stood up, flickered slightly, and disappeared from the place of seclusion. When it reappeared, it was already in another place. This was the place where Yang Kai threw the ice flower in. Catcher. The crisp sound continued. Inside the sealed world bead, the place where the ice flower was located was rapidly turning into frozen earth, and it was also spreading at an extremely fast speed. The terrifying concept contained in the ice flower even affected the space inside the sealed world bead to a certain extent, causing the temperature inside to drop a little. Soon, the area within a radius of 10 miles was covered by a layer of ice. It was only at this time that the abnormality caused by the ice flower gradually subsided. The embodiment inside the sealed world bead and Yang Kai at the bottom of the cliff couldn't help but let out a soft sigh of relief, finally feeling relieved. Chapter 1954. Having inadvertently obtained such a rare treasure like the ice flower, Yang Kai was in a good mood. This thing was indeed useless to him, but it could be exchanged for a lot of cultivation resources, especially source crystals, which he was currently in short supply. If he could find a good auction house to auction off the 3 ice fruits, Yang Kai estimated that he would not have to worry about source crystals in the near future. The bottom of the cliff was not a place to stay for long, so after obtaining the ice flower, Yang Kai prepared to evacuate. But at that moment, a sharp and strange cry suddenly sounded in his ears, followed by a snow-white ray of light that suddenly shot out from nearby, roaring like thunder, giving off a fierce momentum. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed as a great sense of crisis rose in his heart, and he instantly dodged. Kai. The snow-white ray of light struck the air, plowing a huge gully in the ground, sending ice and rocks flying everywhere. Who? Yang Kai subconsciously thought that it was someone hiding at the bottom of this ice cliff who had launched a sneak attack on him, because the sudden appearance of this attack just now gave him a feeling that it was a sword Dao secret technique, and that snow-white light was clearly a kind of sword qi filled with ice principle. But as soon as he spoke, he felt that something was wrong. This was the bottom of the ice cliff, and he had used his nihility secret technique to sneak in. If someone was really hiding here, how terrifying would that person's strength be? Would such a master need to launch a sneak attack to deal with him? So, he quickly looked towards the source of the attack. What he saw gave him quite a fright. In front of him was another snow-white ray of sword qi, wrapped in a cold concept that could freeze one's heart, and principal strength burst out in all directions. Splashing through the void, it was unstoppable, impossible to resist. Yang Kai made such a judgment in an instant, and once again used teleportation to dodge. At the bottom of the cliff, he had to constantly pay attention to the suppression of the surrounding emperor pressure and ice concept while maintaining his nihility secret technique so that he would not be crushed to death. But now, such a violent attack had suddenly appeared. Yang Kai was a little flustered to deal with it. After dodging his opponent's second attack, Yang Kai took the time to carefully look at the source of the attack. When he saw what had attacked him, Yang Kai's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He was shocked and exclaimed, "How is this possible?" The one who had ambushed him was not a person, but an existence that looked like a demonic insect. The demonic insect looked like a dung beetle with a thick carapace on its back. Originally, it should have been green in color, but perhaps because it had been at the bottom of the cliff for too long, its entire body had a crystalline white color. Spirit-eating demonic insect. No way. Yang Kai couldn't believe his eyes. The spirit-eating demon insect was not a specialty of the star boundary. It also existed in the star territory. Therefore, Yang Kai recognized this exotic insect. The spirit-devouring demonic insects ate everything. As long as there was a little bit of spiritual energy, they could become their food. Secret treasure, artifact armor, a cultivator's body, saint crystals, and so on. What's more, their gnawing could ignore all forms of defense and could even devour powerful ancient barriers. In his native star boundary, there was a legend that on a certain cultivation star, there was an ancient sealed place where a fierce existence had been sealed. It was a group of spirit-devouring demonic insects that had gnawed away at the ancient seal's energy. Only then did the ferocious existence manage to break free. That cultivation star had been plunged into a bloody storm, resulting in countless deaths and injuries. Of course, this was just a legend, and whether it was true or not was impossible to determine. But in the end, there was no smoke without fire, so the spirit-devouring demonic insects were very difficult to deal with. Fortunately, the growth rate of these things was extremely slow. The cultivator also knew how dangerous they were, so once they were discovered, they would go all out to kill them. Yang Kai had also seen spirit-devouring demonic insects before, so he recognized them at a glance. However, the spirit-devouring demonic insects he had seen before were nothing more than a group of caterpillars, unable to cause any harm to a cultivator. However, the snow-white spirit-devouring demonic insect in front of him was as tall as two people and looked quite majestic. Its fierce appearance alone gave Yang Kai a great deal of pressure. A monster insect queen? Yang Kai's face sank. Spirit-devouring demonic insects weren't extremely small and delicate existences. Their structure was somewhat similar to that of ants. Among a group of spirit-devouring demonic insects, there would be a mother, and all the spirit-devouring demonic insects would obey its orders. The one in front of him was definitely a monster insect queen. The most outrageous thing was that this snow-white queen monster insect had two large pincers in front of its body. On one of the pincers, there was a sharp sword condensed from energy, flashing with white light. Yang Kai was dumbfounded. At the bottom of this ice cliff, the sudden appearance of such a huge monster insect queen was already incredible enough, but this monster insect queen was actually capable of condensing an energy sword on its own. What kind of situation was this? As for the two identical sword Dao secret techniques just now, they were clearly unleashed by the monster insect queen. Even though Yang Kai was used to seeing storms and waves and had a lot of experience, he still felt that his brain wasn't enough to process all of this. Everything in front of him completely subverted his common sense and destroyed his perception, leaving him unable to come up with a reasonable explanation. The intelligence of spirit-devouring demonic insects was very low. Even if they grew for tens of thousands of years, they still couldn't evolve to the point where they could display sword Dao secret techniques. However, judging from the two sword lights just now, it was clear that this monster insect queen's attainments in sword Dao secret techniques were not low. Those two sword lights definitely had the demeanor of a grandmaster. There was another point that puzzled Yang Kai, however. He faintly felt that those two sword lights, or rather that sword Dao secret technique, were somewhat familiar. Just as Yang Kai was lost in thought, the monster insect queen once again raised the energy sword on its pincers, its two small eyes flashing a cold white light as it stared coldly at Yang Kai, filled with a kind of human-like contempt. Immediately, the surrounding ice principles began to linger around the energy sword. White light flashed as a sword light shot out, cutting through the void like a soaring dragon, but before it could reach him, Yang Kai's breathing stagnated as the space around him froze. This was sword intent, a kind of supreme and cold sword intent. The world energy flowing through the air turned into tiny ice needles and shot towards Yang Kai. Snow suddenly began to fall. Yang Kai exclaimed in shock, "Clear sky snowfall." Yang Kai was shocked to the extreme, never having imagined that he would see this sword Dao secret technique in the star boundary. Yang Kai was well aware of the power of this secret technique, so he didn't dare hesitate and pushed his hands forward, sending out countless moonblades to meet it. Asterisk hong hong hong. Asterisk the cold sword Dao secret technique displayed by the monster insect queen was greatly enhanced by the harsh environment at the bottom of this ice cliff. Although Yang Kai's study of space secret techniques had reached a level that ordinary people could not hope to reach, he was still just a third-order origin king cultivator. On top of that, the harsh environment at the bottom of this ice cliff had a great effect on the sword Dao secret technique displayed by the monster insect queen. As such, as soon as the two secret techniques collided, the moon blades shattered, unable to resist the sword light at all. The dazzling cold sword light tore through Yang Kai's resistance and struck his face. Yang Kai's breathing stagnated as he hurriedly circulated his nihility secret technique to merge himself with the void. Asterisk show. Asterisk countless ice needles and huge sword light pierced through the place where Yang Kai stood, directly breaking through his nihility secret technique. Yang Kai's transparent body reappeared, and although he was able to avoid most of the attacks because he had merged with the void, he was unable to completely resist the cold sword Dao secret technique. After reappearing, Yang Kai felt cold all over and his face turned purple. Before he could refocus his attention to deal with the monster insect queen, the surrounding emperor pressure and ice principles pressed down on him. Panicking, Yang Kai hurriedly used nihility again to avoid the violent murderous intent. "I can't stay here any longer. If I do, I will definitely die." Yang Kai made a decision in his heart. The moment his body transformed into nihility, he madly pushed his strength and teleported upwards, trying to escape from this dangerous place. Even without looking back, Yang Kai knew that the monster insect queen was close behind him because of the numerous sword lights that were flying towards him from behind. If not for his proficiency in space secret techniques, he would likely have been frozen into an ice sculpture or killed on the spot. Impossible. This doesn't make sense. Yang Kai flew upwards while dodging the attacks from behind, a look of confusion on his face. The reason for this was none other than the sword Dao secret technique displayed by the monster insect queen that confused him greatly. After observing this secret technique several times, Yang Kai finally determined that he had seen it before. Clear sky snowfall. It was clearly the secret technique that Su Yang had used in front of him before. During his days in High Heaven Sect, Yang Kai would occasionally exchange a few moves with Su Yang. He had seen Su Yang use clear sky snowfall more than once, so this secret technique had left a deep impression on him. After coming to the star boundary, how could Yang Kai not be surprised to see this secret technique being used by a spirit-devouring monster insect queen? The monster insect queen being able to use a secret technique was shocking enough, but it was actually using Su Yang's secret technique. If it weren't for the sharp pain in his chest, Yang Kai would have thought he was dreaming. But then again, this monster insect queen's mastery and understanding of clear sky snowfall was definitely not something that Su Yang could compare with. After all, Su Yang was only a first-order origin king at the time, and this secret technique was something she had learned from Scarlet Wavestar's Iceheart Valley. The same secret technique had appeared in two different places. The only explanation was that someone had passed it down in the middle. Who was the one who had acted as the middleman? Was this secret technique passed down from the star boundary, or was it passed down from the star territory? Many thoughts flashed through Yang Kai's mind, but he could not find a reasonable explanation. But soon, he remembered something. Su Yang once said that everything she learned in Iceheart Valley was created by Iceheart Valley's ancestral founder, Bing Yun. Even the profound frost divine sword she brought out of Iceheart Valley was Bing Yun's personal sword. Opening his sealed memories, Yang Kai vaguely remembered that when he was in Iceheart Valley on Scarlet Wavestar, Sect Master Bing Long once said that Iceheart Valley's ancestral founder, Bing Yun, was most likely still alive because in the frozen pond, there was only Bing Yun's personal sword, Profound Frost, And no origin essence crystal. Could it be, Ice Heart Valley's ancestral founder, Bing Yun, also came to the star boundary? Chapter 1955. The more Yang Kai thought about it, the more he felt this was a possibility. Yang Kai didn't know how strong Ice Heart Valley's ancestral founder, Bing Yun, was, but Ice Heart Valley used to be a great sect in Star Territory a long time ago, stronger than Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce, Sword Union, and Purple Star. However, because too much time had passed and the disciples failed to live up to expectations, Ice Heart Valley gradually declined. Even so, there was still an Origin King Realm cultivator in Ice Heart Valley. To be able to create such a sect, how weak could his own strength be? This sect had been around for 10,000 to 20,000 years. If Bing Yun had left Star Territory long ago and arrived in the star boundary, it would make sense. The clear sky snowfall secret technique used by the monster insect queen was definitely related to Bing Yun. It could even be said that the formation of this ice cliff was most likely related to Bing Yun. If Bing Yun was still alive, with her age and aptitude, it wouldn't be difficult for her to reach the Emperor Realm. The remnant Dao here was also consistent with the ice attribute secret arts and secret techniques cultivated by Ice Heart Valley. Yang Kai gradually sorted out the sequence of events, but whether it was the truth or not, he didn't know. At the very least, his guess explained why clear sky snowfall appeared in the star boundary. As the sword wave continued to attack him from behind, Yang Kai soon discovered a sign that made him feel slightly relaxed. The monster insect queen chasing him from behind seemed to only know a single clear sky snowfall and didn't use any other secret techniques. All of its killer moves were based on clear sky snowfall. This made Yang Kai overjoyed. After all, if this was the case, he had the confidence to deal with it. Fortunately, he was proficient in the Tao of Space, and cultivators who were proficient in the Tao of Space were famous for their ability to escape. It was actually very difficult to kill a cultivator who was proficient in the Tao of Space. Whether it was in Star Territory or the Star Boundary, this was the case. The last thing a cultivator wanted to offend was someone like Yang Kai. The power of space allowed them to come and go without a trace. If he couldn't kill them in one strike, he would be in a lot of trouble. Therefore, once a cultivator offended such an enemy, there were only two safest solutions. Kill them quickly or turn hostility into friendship. Otherwise, he would be the unlucky one. From the bottom of the cliff all the way up, Yang Kai had wandered back and forth between the gates of hell several times. Because he couldn't use his divine sense, Yang Kai didn't know how strong this monster insect queen was. He only knew that it was not something he could contend with right now, so naturally, he extinguished any thoughts of fighting and just wanted to get rid of it. But for some reason, the monster insect queen seemed to have gone crazy. It chased after Yang Kai like a maggot. His huge body moved with indescribable agility, and he was not much slower than Yang Kai when he jumped on the ice cliff. After a stick of incense worth of time, Yang Kai shot out from the ice cliff like a cannonball and landed on a nearby mountain peak. Only now did he finally catch his breath. Without the suppression of the rich emperor pressure and ice principles from below, as well as the natural advantage of the monster insect queen, the situation was finally not so bad. Yang Kai turned around. Waiting with rapt attention, he exhaled softly. In the next moment, the huge snow-white figure arrived and landed directly in front of Yang Kai. Observing the monster insect queen from the top of the mountain, Yang Kai could see its ferocious face more clearly, causing his scalp to go numb. Sweeping it with his divine sense, Yang Kai found that the energy fluctuations coming from the monster insect queen were not much worse than Bian Yu Qing's, perhaps even stronger. The Emperor Realm? Yang Kai paled. Even if this monster insect queen was not a monster beast of the Emperor Realm, it was not far from it. There was a gap of 2 great realms between it and Yang Kai. Fighting such an enemy, it was no different from seeking his own death. Yang Kai could not help but rejoice that he had not been killed by it at the bottom of the ice cliff. Just as Yang Kai's forehead was dripping with cold sweat, he suddenly discovered an extremely strange thing. This monster insect queen did not seem to have the slightest signs of life, and there were no signs of blood flowing from its body. Dead. Yang Kai could not help frowning. There were no signs of life. There were no signs of blood flowing, indicating that this monster insect queen was dead. But how could a dead thing be so flexible? How could it display a sword Dao secret technique like clear sky snowfall? However, this also explained why it couldn't kill Yang Kai so easily even though it had the powerful aura of an Emperor Realm Master. It was just an inanimate object, so it couldn't display the power of an Emperor Realm Master. Yang Kai carefully observed it again and was surprised to find that there was a clear wound on its abdomen, seemingly caused by sword chi that had penetrated its entire body. The wound was covered in ice crystals, revealing the internal organs in its abdomen, but strangely, there was no blood flowing from it. It really was a dead thing. Could it be the same as the corpse spirit race? Its soul was not extinguished, and it came back from the dead in the special environment at the bottom of the ice cliff. Since encountering this monster insect queen, Yang Kai had many questions, but he did not have the time to investigate because after the monster insect queen rushed up, it quickly launched an attack. The long sword formed from energy drew a circle on its pincers, and where the sword pointed, a fierce burst of energy erupted. In the sky, snow began to fall, the size of goose feathers, and the world was instantly covered in a snow-white silver. A whistling cold wind swept up, and with the monster insect queen as the center, an area of 10 miles was shrouded in an indescribable chill. In this world, it was as if all the laws no longer existed, leaving only cold. And in this place, the monster insect queen was the ruler. This was the control that masters of the Emperor Realm had over the strength of laws. With a single thought, they could change the world, move the stars, and change the moon. Yang Kai's complexion changed greatly as he desperately circulated his strength to resist, but he was still so cold that his teeth chattered and his entire body shivered. He had taken a blow from his opponent at the bottom of the ice cliff, and although he had used nihility to neutralize the fatal damage, he had not been able to completely avoid it and had suffered heavy injuries. Now that his opponent's sword had appeared, he was immediately in a worse situation. The monster insect queen's eyes glowed with a strange snow-white light as it issued a sharp, ear-piercing cry. As it cried out, the icy sword intent it emitted caused the nearby world principles to flow, making the originally not-so-cold peak even more unbearable than the bottom of the cliff. Yang Kai's face sank as he realized that he had made a big mistake this time. He could indeed fight those above his realm, but there was a limit to this. Facing this monster insect queen that was most likely a cultivator from the Emperor realm and was proficient in a sword Dao secret technique, even if he had the ability to do so, he would not be able to do anything. Yang Kai could almost foresee that when his opponent's sword fell, his soul would scatter. At this critical moment, Yang Kai desperately urged his space force to teleport away, but to his despair, the surrounding space had already been sealed by the ice principles and his space force was completely useless at this moment. The queen monster insect's eyes glowed with white light, revealing a cruel light. It raised its long sword high, and the power of law lingered on the sword. On the verge of life and death, Yang Kai's mind suddenly flashed and he hurriedly summoned something, poured his strength into it, and threw it towards the monster insect queen. This thing was a bracelet-like artifact with countless rice-sized rune patterns on it, all of them flashing brightly and containing a rich emperor pressure. When Yang Kai threw the bracelet, the monster insect queen turned a deaf ear to it, but when the bracelet smashed towards it, the rice grain-sized runes on the bracelet began to glow and a natural suppressive force enveloped its body, causing the monster insect queen to suddenly scream. Its eyes trembled violently as it stared at the bracelet in horror, like a mouse that had seen a cat, its huge body trembling slightly. This bracelet seemed to have a natural restraining effect on the monster insect queen. Asterisk ding dang. Asterisk the bracelet smashed directly into the monster insect queen's head. Although Yang Kai had used a lot of strength, such an attack was obviously unable to cause any fatal damage to the monster insect queen. However, the power contained within the bracelet made the monster insect queen feel as if it had been struck by lightning. The ice principles that had shrouded the world suddenly collapsed and the snowflakes falling from the sky turned into sharp blades that shot out in all directions uncontrollably. Yang Kai's face paled. How could he dare to remain in place? Directly summoning the sealed world bead, Yang Kai hid inside it. But the moment Yang Kai disappeared, a buzzing sound suddenly rang out and a violent ice principles poured into the monster insect queen's body, causing it to explode one after another. Asterisk hong hong hong. Asterisk the monster insect queen's body was torn to shreds, but there was no blood, and its snow-white body was riddled with holes in the blink of an eye. Even the energy swords condensed from its pincers had collapsed. Backlash. After displaying such a pure sword Dao secret technique, Yang Kai had been interrupted at a critical moment, causing the monster insect queen to experience the terrifying killing power of its own secret technique. Asterisk hualala. Asterisk above the ice cliff, the ice and rocks were cut into pieces by the overflowing sword chi, and the entire summit seemed to have been flattened. It was easy to imagine that if Yang Kai were still here, even if he used all of his defensive means, he would not be able to resist such power, and the only result would be death. A series of explosions rang out as the shattered ice and rocks fell down the ice cliff, slamming into the rock walls, causing a series of loud noises. After a full 30 breaths, the abnormalities at the top of the ice cliff gradually subsided. Only then did Yang Kai's figure flash and reappear from the sealed world bead. The scene in front of him caused him to involuntarily gulp, secretly rejoicing that he had escaped so quickly. When he turned his attention back to the monster insect queen, Yang Kai was pleasantly surprised to find that it was lying motionless on the ground. Its body, which had been fatally wounded before, was now in tatters. Obviously, it couldn't be any more dead. A snow-white light suddenly emerged from the monster insect queen's body, twisting slightly before condensing into the shape of a long sword. Its form was 70 to 80% similar to Su Yang's profound frost divine sword. What the hell is this? Kai Yang's brow wrinkled. Just as he was about to take a closer look, the snow-white light shot directly towards him. In an instant, an icy cold aura enveloped his body, causing him to tremble in fear. However, this feeling was incomparable to the pressure Yang Kai felt from the monster insect queen. Yang Kai grit his teeth and summoned the sealed world bead, his vast divine sense bursting out like a tide from his knowledge sea, wrapping around the snow-white light as he shouted, "Come in." The next moment, the snow-white light wrapped by Yang Kai's divine sense was pulled into the sealed world bead. Chapter 1956. At the top of the ice cliff, with the disappearance of the snow-white light, the tranquility of 10,000 years was restored. Yang Kai's face was pale as he gasped for breath. Stepping forward, he picked up the bracelet artifact he had just thrown away, a look of relief on his face. This time, he was able to escape danger and even cause the monster insect queen to suffer a backlash from its own secret technique, resulting in its death, all thanks to the power of this bracelet artifact. Emperor Artifact, Insect Enslavement Bracelet. The Insect Emperor's source artifact had a natural restraining effect on exotic insects. The Insect Emperor had fallen from grace and was killed by Yang Kai on Shadowed Star. The two Emperor artifacts he possessed had also become Yang Kai's spoils of war. In addition to the Insect Enslavement Bracelet, which symbolized his identity, there was also the soul-splitting saber. However, the grade of these two Emperor artifacts was too high, and they did not match Yang Kai's strength, so Yang Kai was unable to refine them. These two Emperor artifacts had been hidden inside the Black Book space. Yang Kai had not used the soul-splitting saber yet, but this was the second time he had used the Insect Enslavement Bracelet. The first time was in the Severed World, when Yang Kai and Shui Yu were being chased by countless illusionary void butterflies. At that time, Yang Kai had also used the magical effects of the Insect Enslavement Bracelet to repel the countless illusionary void butterflies that even Origin Kings feared. Using it that time allowed Yang Kai to experience the magical effects of the Insect Enslavement Bracelet at certain times. Just now, Yang Kai had a flash of inspiration and suddenly remembered that he still had this special artifact, so he took it out to try it out. Unexpectedly, its effects were surprisingly good. Looking at the Insect Enslavement Bracelet in a daze, Yang Kai looked a little puzzled, because even if the Insect Enslavement Bracelet was an artifact once owned by the Insect Emperor, it had a natural restraining effect on exotic insects. However, the monster insect queen was not weak, so how could it have been suppressed by this Insect Enslavement Bracelet and directly killed? Yang Kai was somewhat puzzled. After a while, he put away the insect enslavement bracelet. His figure flickered and disappeared, entering the sealed world bead. Releasing his divine sense, Yang Kai discovered the snow-white light that had appeared from the monster insect queen's body. Where was he now? Yang Kai's figure flickered again, and with a single thought, he appeared in another part of the small sealed world. Here, the scenery was beautiful and tranquil. Only a snow-white ray of light was flying at high speed in the shape of a sword, like a headless fly. Yang Kai was hiding in the dark. He didn't show himself immediately. Instead, he observed it silently. Now that this guy had been taken into the sealed world bead, it was equivalent to entering Yang Kai's territory. Even if it had the strength of the Emperor realm, Yang Kai was not afraid at all. The more he looked at it, the more Yang Kai felt that its shape was very similar to Su Yang's profound frost divine sword. This also confirmed Yang Kai's previous speculations about Ice Heart Valley's ancestral founder, Bing Yun. Is this the monster insect queen's soul? Yang Kai thought to himself. However, he soon discovered that something was wrong. This snow-white sword-shaped light was indeed somewhat similar to a soul. It was a structure composed entirely of energy, and it also contained a trace of chaotic consciousness. However, it was definitely not the monster insect queen's soul. On the contrary, Yang Kai felt an awe-inspiring sword intent from it. What the hell is this? After observing it for a long time, Yang Kai determined that this thing could not pose any threat to him after leaving the monster insect queen's body. Only then did he leisurely reveal himself. Yang Kai had just appeared in front of it. The snow-white sword-shaped light suddenly let out a clang. An ice concept and principle strength instantly lingered on the sword's body. The sword tip trembled slightly as it pointed in the direction of Yang Kai. You overestimate yourself. Yang Kai slowly shook his head, stretched out his hand, and waved it gently. The energy in the world suddenly changed and lingered on the sword's body. The ice concept and principle strength, which had been gathering more and more fiercely, burst apart like bubbles. Inside this sealed world bead, Yang Kai was like a master on Shadowed Star. With a single thought, he could change anything he wanted. The other party wanting to fight him here was simply a brainless act. The inexplicable snow-white light obviously did not realize this, and after Yang Kai dispelled its condensed killing move, it continued to display its clear sky snowfall secret technique without being discouraged. Just rest for a moment. Yang Kai spat disdainfully before stretching out his hand and forming a rope of energy visible to the naked eye that tightly wrapped around the other party. Yang Kai stretched out his hand again and the bound snow-white light immediately flew into his hand. Yang Kai closed his eyes and carefully sensed this strange thing. He really wanted to know what this thing was. With the passage of time, Yang Kai's calm expression gradually changed, becoming one of surprise, amazement, shock, disbelief, a myriad of wonderful expressions. After a long time, Yang Kai opened his eyes and stared at the snow-white light in his hand as if he had seen a ghost. It's actually a sentient sword intent. Is there such a thing in this world? Yang Kai looked horrified. This snow-white sword-shaped light was not the soul of the monster insect queen as he had originally thought, nor was it the soul of some kind of creature. Instead, it was formed from the clear sky snowfall secret technique's sentient sword intent. In this world, not every existence with flesh and blood could be called a living being or possess sentience. Some trees, strange stones, and even spirit pills, after absorbing enough world energy over the years, may also develop sentience. For example, there were many kinds of world spirit treasures, such as pill spirits. The world was so big that nothing was too strange. It was just that Yang Kai had never thought that the sword intent contained in a secret technique could also develop sentience and give birth to its own chaotic will. This snow-white sword-shaped light was the sword intent contained in the clear sky snowfall secret technique. Under the influence of the ice concept and principle below the ice cliff, it had accumulated for countless years and was born. To put it bluntly, it was a sword intent. Just how profound was the understanding of the sword Tao of the master who used this technique back then? It was just a sword intent that could produce such a bizarre change after 10,000 years. However, This also explained why it could not display the true cultivation of the Emperor realm. The monster insect queen had died long ago. It was most likely killed by the master of the Emperor realm back then, but because of the special environment and its powerful body, it had remained intact. After the sword intent developed sentience and gave birth to the chaotic will, it instinctively attached itself to the monster insect queen. This was not possession, but the most basic control of the monster insect queen's body. Naturally, it could not display the full strength of the monster insect queen. It was no wonder that it only knew the clear sky snowfall secret technique and that all its killing moves evolved from this secret technique. It turned out that this was the reason. It was born from the clear sky snowfall secret technique, so it naturally did not know anything other than the clear sky snowfall secret technique. It had not completely merged with the monster insect queen, so under the suppression of the insect enslavement bracelet, it was directly expelled from the monster insect queen's body. Without a carrier, the secret technique it used would naturally suffer a backlash. There were all kinds of things that he could not understand before, but after Yang Kai learned the truth of this snow-white sword-shaped light, everything had a reasonable explanation. Looking at the struggling sword intent in his hand, Yang Kai frowned. It was undeniable that this thing was definitely a good thing. After all, it was a sword intent. If he could refine and devour it, it would be equivalent to comprehending the secret technique that the master of the Emperor realm comprehended. He would be able to use such a powerful secret technique. Even Yang Kai was a little tempted. Although he had mastered a lot of secret techniques now, if he could use one more, he would have more options when facing enemies. However, if he wanted to use such a secret technique, he would need to cultivate an ice attribute secret art or have ice attribute strength in his body. Yang Kai did not have any ice attribute strength in his body, so even if he refined this sword intent, using clear sky snowfall would not have the desired effect. How good would it be if Su Yang was here? Kai Yang wrung his hands and sighed. He couldn't refine it, but he couldn't leave it in the sealed world bead either. After all, there was still a medicine field in the sealed world bead where he planted all the spirit herbs he had accumulated. If this thing ran to the medicine field and destroyed it, Yang Kai wouldn't even have a place to cry. Difficult. Yang Kai frowned. He couldn't refine it, couldn't leave it, and was even more reluctant to throw it away. He scratched his head, unable to think of a good solution to the problem in front of him. Just as he was feeling quite embarrassed, an idea suddenly popped up in his mind. Yang Kai smiled happily and concentrated on carefully considering the gains and losses. After a while, he made up his mind and felt that this was indeed a good idea. Not only would he not waste this sentient sword intent, he would also be able to improve his strength in a short time. Considering all this, Yang Kai no longer hesitated and flew out of the sealed world bead. Looking around, Yang Kai found the monster insect queen's body, which was riddled with holes due to the backlash from Clear Sky Snowfall's secret technique. He rushed over and threw the monster insect queen's body into the sealed world bead before returning to the sealed world bead. Standing in an open space, with the bound sword intent suspended in midair and the huge snow-white monster insect queen's body on the ground, Yang Kai grinned and stretched out his hand, summoning the sword intent back to him. Although this sword intent was sentient, its will was chaotic and couldn't be communicated with at all. It only knew the simplest of killing and destruction, so Yang Kai didn't bother to say anything to it. He directly urged his divine sense to envelop it. Yang Kai wanted to brand his soul brand into this sword intent. In this way, he would be able to command this sentient sword intent and make it obey his orders. This was no different from controlling a cultivator. Both were branded into one's soul, but because the other party's consciousness was chaotic, it would not actively cooperate. However, it was precisely because its consciousness was chaotic that Yang Kai was able to use it more conveniently. Releasing his divine sense, Yang Kai tried his best to brand his will into the sentient sword intent, trying to leave a trace of his life inside it. During this period, he encountered a lot of resistance, and even Yang Kai's divine sense suffered a lot of damage, but one was an unconscious struggle, while the other was a purposeful act. In the end, the sentient sword intent was naturally no match for Yang Kai's methods and was successfully suppressed, engraving Yang Kai's life and soul brand into it. Chapter 1957. Branding his own soul brand was only the first step. After doing this, Yang Kai released the shackles on the sentient sword intent. Sure enough, at this moment, it no longer had any hostility towards Yang Kai. On the contrary, there was a hint of intimacy. The snow-white sword light continued to revolve around Yang Kai, like a newborn baby opening its eyes and seeing its parents for the first time. It no longer posed any threat to Yang Kai and instead obeyed Yang Kai's various commands. Yang Kai didn't bother with it and simply let it fly around him, instead closing his eyes and restoring his soul. A day later, Yang Kai recovered and opened his eyes. The sword intent had already stopped flying around and was now resting quietly on Yang Kai's shoulder. Come, I'll give you a makeover. Although Yang Kai knew that it was pointless to communicate with it, he still couldn't help but ask. As soon as he finished speaking, he stretched out his hand and caught the sword intent in his palm. Immediately after, he stretched out his hand and sent out several golden blood threads to entangle the sword intent. The sword intent seemed to want to resist, but under Yang Kai's comforting, it soon calmed down. Not long after, the snow-white sentient sword intent was completely wrapped up by the golden blood threads. The massive amount of vitality contained in the golden blood threads was constantly being absorbed by the sword intent. Half a day later, the originally snow-white sentient sword intent had transformed into a brilliant golden color. At this moment, the sword intent was no longer just a collection of pure energy, but because it was covered by the golden blood threads, it even had obvious vitality fluctuations. It was not an exaggeration to say that it had a body of its own. With the golden blood threads as the body and the sword intent as the soul, in a sense, this sword intent had been reborn. However, this was not the end. But this was not the end of it. With a thought from Yang Kai, the golden sword intent trembled slightly and shot directly into the monster insect queen's body. Lying on the ground, the queen monster insect, which didn't have the slightest fluctuation of vitality, underwent an obvious change at this moment. Its snow-white body flowed with a brilliant golden light, and under the influence and repair of the huge amount of vitality, its body, which was riddled with holes due to the backlash of the secret technique, gradually began to heal itself. There were obvious energy fluctuations. From within the queen monster insect's body, his snow-white eyes, which were lifeless, gradually began to glow with a dim light. Yang Kai carefully observed the changes in the queen monster insect, as well as the degree of fusion between the sword intent and the queen monster insect. The method he was using now was completely different from when he used his sword intent to control the queen monster insect. Previously, the sword intent had simply attached itself to the body of the queen monster insect. It was a simple way to control the body, allowing his consciousness to have a carrier. However, Yang Kai was now using the method of condensing blood fiends to reshape the connection between the sword intent and the queen monster insect. If he succeeds, then Yang Kai will have another powerful blood fiend. And if he failed? Yang Kai felt that it was unlikely that he would fail. After all, before this, the sword intent had already reached a certain degree of compatibility with the queen monster insect's body, and with his own means, there was almost no possibility of failure. As time passed, the color of the queen monster insect's body gradually changed to gold and white, and the fusion between its body and soul became more and more stable. This was obviously a sign of success. To be on the safe side, Yang Kai even cut his palm. Forcing out a few drops of the purest golden blood, Yang Kai fused them with the queen monster insect's body to repair its tattered body. At a certain moment, the queen monster insect's snow-white eyes suddenly flashed with a strange golden light, and immediately, its huge body began to move slightly, as if the sword intent was familiarizing itself with its fused body. It struggled to get up from the ground, like a toddler learning how to walk, staggering and nearly falling to the ground several times. When it was finally able to support its own body, it crawled back and forth on the ground. Yang Kai couldn't help but laugh. Success. Although this idea was a bit too bizarre, it finally proved that he was not wrong. Using a different soul and body, he could still condense blood fiends. After all, blood fiends were not real living creatures. This was a divine ability attached to the golden blood thread secret technique that allowed Yang Kai to transform a dead object. The requirements for materials were not so strict. Even if it was crawling on the ground, its body was still a head taller than Yang Kai. The more Yang Kai looked at this new creation, the more satisfied he became. He could clearly feel the chaotic will of sword intent in the queen monster insect's body, which was very close to him. In his previous battle with this guy, he had not been able to probe its bottom line, so Yang Kai naturally wanted to see how powerful it could be. With a thought, Yang Kai issued a command to the queen monster insect. The queen monster insect immediately straightened its upper body, and an energy sword appeared on the pincers that were equivalent to its right hand. As soon as the sword appeared, an ice concept and principle strength gathered on its tip, causing the surrounding temperature to plummet and causing snowflakes to fall. Wherever the sword pointed, the snowflakes would transform into a fierce attack that blasted towards the void. Clear sky snowfall. A violent power suddenly erupted, causing the world to darken as the void in front of Yang Kai seemed to be pierced through and principle strength appeared and disappeared. Yang Kai's expression changed slightly. This sword Dao secret technique was truly worthy of being called sentient sword intent. Its mastery of this sword Dao secret technique had already reached the level of a grandmaster, but this wasn't surprising. After all, this was the sword intent of an Emperor Realm Master, and now that it was being used by the monster insect queen, it was equivalent to an Emperor Realm Master personally attacking. The only difference was that the power was much weaker, but the concept was the same. This attack should have the effect of a full-powered attack from a cultivator from the first-order Dao source realm, right? Yang Kai frowned and muttered to himself while staring at the queen monster insect. He was not dissatisfied in the slightest, as the experiment in front of him had already achieved the results he had expected. Although he had previously felt the power fluctuations from this queen monster insect that were roughly equivalent to those from the Emperor realm, after being transformed into a blood beast, the power it could display would always be weaker than its original form. This was inevitable. The army of blood beasts that Yang Kai had condensed before was also like this. What's more, at this moment, the sword intent and the queen monster insect's physical body had just merged, so it definitely could not display its full strength. After a while, perhaps it could improve a lot, but Yang Kai estimated that the third-order Dao source realm was its peak. It was enough. With such a powerful master from the third-order Dao source realm by his side that he could order at will, Yang Kai finally had some capital to establish himself in the astral boundary. He no longer had to be so timid like when he first came here. However, external help was always external, and the goal of a cultivator was to be strong himself. Kai Yang had already experienced this a long time ago, so he didn't place all his hopes on external forces. This trip to the ice cliff was closed. The harvest was huge. Not to mention that the ice flower exotic fruit was a rare supreme treasure. Just obtaining the queen monster insect made Yang Kai's trip worthwhile. What's more, he broke through to the third-order origin king realm here, transformed half of his source chi, and comprehended the nihility secret technique. Yang Kai was in a good mood as he looked at the queen monster insect in front of him. Thinking about it, it was time to find an ice attribute artifact sword for it. If it had the assistance of a suitable artifact, the power of its secret technique would be significantly improved. Thinking about it, when the time came, the queen monster insect could wield a sword and use clear sky snowflakes to stun its enemies. Although Yang Kai had a lot of artifacts on hand, apart from a few emperor artifacts, he did not have any. Nor did he have an ice attribute sword that was suitable for the queen monster insect's use. In this world, how could there be a monster beast that was proficient in sword Dao secret techniques? After instructing the queen monster insect to recuperate its soul in the sealed world bead and fuse with its body, Yang Kai left. There was no need for him to worry about the rest. All he needed was time to accumulate, and the degree of fusion between the sword intent and the queen monster insect would become higher and higher. Eventually, it would reach its peak and become a complete blood beast. Yang Kai was looking forward to it. The next few days passed uneventfully. Yang Kai stayed 5,000 meters below the ice cliff. He carved out a new secluded home. Living here safely, Yang Kai took advantage of the special environment to temper his will. At the same time, he immersed himself in the research of his new secret technique, nihility. On this day, Yang Kai stood at the top of the ice cliff and looked into the distance. According to his estimation, the 3-month confinement should be up today, so he stood here and waited for Kuwu to pick him up. Although it was already time, Yang Kai was still in confinement. But in the end, he was still in solitary confinement, and if he ran back, he might get into trouble again. Yang Kai didn't want to provoke any more waves, so he thought it was better to be safe than sorry. But what he did not expect was that after waiting for a long time, Kuwu would not show up. It was not until the day was almost over that a small black dot appeared in the distance. Yang Kai's face lit up with joy as he stared over. The appearance of this person was soon imprinted in Yang Kai's eyes. It was not Kuwu as he expected, but a cultivator he had never seen before. Judging from the aura fluctuations coming from this person's body, he was only a third-order origin king. The man who had just arrived stopped a short distance away, apparently not wanting to get too close to the ice cliff forbidden area. Staring in Yang Kai's direction, the man called out, "Senior Brother Ku asked me to come here today to tell you that your confinement is over and you can return to the sect." Saying so, he turned around and left. Yang Kai was stunned and quickly flew out from where he was standing and chased after this person at an extremely fast speed. Both of them were third-order origin kings, so with the other party moving at a leisurely pace, Yang Kai was naturally able to catch up. Flying forward side by side, the newcomer frowned slightly and quietly opened up some distance between him and Yang Kai. Although Yang Kai noticed this, he did not care and instead cupped his fists and asked, "Dare I ask brother's name?" The man said impatiently, "I just came here on Brother Ku's orders to deliver a message. There is no need for you to try and curry favor with me." The look on his face made him seem unapproachable, as if Yang Kai owed him a lot of money. Being rebuffed, Yang Kai was extremely depressed, but he still asked, "Why didn't Brother Ku come today and instead troubled Brother to come here?" Brother Ku had a mission to complete and left the sect a month ago. If you want to wait for him to pick you up, you might as well return to the ice cliff first. The man finished speaking very quickly before suddenly speeding up and leaving Yang Kai behind. Chapter 1958. This newcomer's attitude was very bad, making Yang Kai feel very uncomfortable. However, considering that the relationship between Blue Feather Sect's disciples was not very harmonious, and that he had no friendship with the other party at all, in fact, they didn't even know each other before, Yang Kai felt relieved. However, Kuwu had actually gone out to perform a task as early as a month ago, which surprised Yang Kai greatly. Yang Kai didn't know what kind of task it was that made him leave in such a hurry. Shaking his head, Yang Kai didn't think much about it and flew straight forward. Ice Cliff was only 10,000 kilometers away from Blue Feather Sect, but this distance was nothing to Yang Kai, so it didn't take him long to arrive at Blue Feather Sect's headquarters. Landing in front of his simple residence, Yang Kai released his divine sense to investigate the house next door. This was Liu Xianyun's residence, and the two residences were only 20 meters apart. Inside the house, Liu Xianyun seemed to be meditating, but after noticing Yang Kai's divine sense, she quickly opened her eyes and ran out of the house, a look of surprise on her face as she called out, "Brother Yang, you're back?" She had been alone for the past few months, so she felt very helpless in this unfamiliar Blue Feather Sect. Although she and Kai Yang had not known each other for a long time, because of their similar fates and backgrounds, she subconsciously felt a sense of closeness towards Kai Yang. Especially since Kai Yang's temperament was very good, and he was also very forthright. When she learned that Yang Kai had been confined, she had been worried for a long time. If Yang Kai had an accident on Ice Cliff, she would really be all alone from now on. "I just came back," Yang Kai smiled lightly. "Did something happen, huh? Brother Yang, you actually broke through?" Liu Xianyun quickly noticed the traces of Yang Kai's breakthrough and covered her mouth with her hand, her beautiful eyes filled with surprise. After all, she had heard that the environment on Ice Cliff was very harsh. It was very difficult for anyone to escape unscathed from that place. Originally, she was still worried about Yang Kai's safety, but she didn't expect that not only did Yang Kai return unscathed, he even broke through a realm. "I was just lucky." Yang Kai nodded lightly. "How have you been these few months?" "What else could it be?" Liu Xianyun shook her head with a bitter smile. That's it. As she spoke, she suddenly coughed lightly, and an abnormal flush appeared on her delicate face. Although he quickly covered it up, how could he hide from Yang Kai's observation? Are you hurt? Yang Kai frowned. Something unexpected happened while I was cultivating, Liu Xianyun hurriedly replied. Yang Kai stared into her eyes, as if he wanted to look into the depths of her heart. Liu Xianyun forced a smile and said, It's not a big problem. It's just that I was a little anxious when I was cultivating. I'll be fine after a few days of rest. Was it really an accident while you were cultivating? Yang Kai's voice gradually became cold. Liu Xianyun was a third-order origin king cultivator, and although it was possible for cultivators at this level to suffer injuries or become the demon race while in retreat, that was under the premise that they were in a life-or-death retreat. She must have been comprehending some kind of secret technique or secret art. How could Liu Xianyun be in such a place? Why would I lie to you? Liu Xianyun said anxiously, I wanted to enter retreat a few days ago to comprehend the mysteries of the Tao Source realm, but I didn't expect that my strength was not enough. Tell me the truth, I'm not a child, Yang Kai interrupted her explanation. Liu Xianyun opened her mouth but eventually sighed, Brother Yang, let's just forget about this matter. Don't ask anymore. Protector Bien and Brother Ku are not in the sect right now, so if we cause any more trouble, I'm afraid it won't end well. Protector Bien is also not in the sect. Yang Kai raised his brow. A few days ago, Protector Bien took a lot of people out, including Brother Ku, but I don't know where they went. Also, I'm really fine, just a little injured. You and I are newcomers, so we should just bear with it. Yang Kai nodded slightly, the corners of his mouth rising into a sarcastic smile. He said, It's good that you can think like that. But I'm afraid some people won't stop here. As he spoke, he turned his head and looked to the side. Liu Xianyun was startled. She suddenly realized what he was looking at and followed his gaze. Her face couldn't help but turn ugly. Over there, a group of 4 or 5 cultivators were walking towards them. The leader of this group was a man with a resolute face and an indifferent expression. His hands were crossed behind his back, giving him an inviolable appearance. Behind him were 3 other people, all of whom were cultivators Yang Kai had met before. One of them was Chu Fei, the one he had taught a harsh lesson in the city. After not seeing him for 3 months, Chu Fei's injuries seemed to have not healed. After all, Yang Kai had not held back at that time, so even if he used pills and Chu Fei's own restorative abilities, it would take him more than 3 months to fully recover. At this moment, Chu Fei was obviously a bit weak, and his face was not as ruddy as before. The other 2 were also fellow sufferers who had been with Chu Fei at that time. At this moment, Yang Kai had just returned from the ice cliff, yet this group of people had directly blocked him at the door of his house. Their intentions were self-evident. Chu Fei glared at Yang Kai, naturally enraged at the sight of his enemy, gnashing his teeth as he whispered something to the cultivator at the front. The man's expression was indifferent and did not respond at all, but judging from Chu Fei's ingratiating look, this person's status in Blue Feather Sect was definitely not low, at least on the same level as Ku Wu, and his strength was probably not much different from Ku Wu's. The group of people walked over, the cultivator at the front staring at Yang Kai with eyes as sharp as a hawk's, his eyes filled with disdain and contempt. When he stopped 5 meters away, Chu Fei stared at Yang Kai with a fierce expression and sneered, Junior Brother Yang, I trust you have been well since we last met? I didn't expect Protector Bien to not kill you after locking you up in the ice cliff. It seems your life is quite good. Yang Kai chuckled, looked Chu Fei up and down, and said, Brother Chu, how are your injuries? Are you itching for a beating again and want this junior brother to help you loosen your bones? If so, this junior brother would be happy to help. When Chu Fei heard this, he subconsciously shivered. In the battle 3 months ago, he had been completely unable to resist Yang Kai and had been beaten to the ground, losing all face. Thinking back to that moment, he still felt like he was in a nightmare, causing him to tremble in fear. Chu Fei could not help feeling a little angry. Don't be so smug, if you know what's good for you today, this brother will let you go, but if you don't, Yang Kai shouted with an exaggerated expression, After 3 months, it seems Brother Chu's courage has grown a lot. Who gave you such courage? Could it be this brother? Saying so, Yang Kai turned his eyes and stared at the leading cultivator. His tone was not polite at all. The other party was obviously here for revenge, so there was no need for him to show weakness. Chu Fei and the other 2 Origin Kings were nothing in his eyes. 3 months ago, when he was just a second-order Origin King, he could easily deal with them. Now that his strength had soared, he naturally did not put them in his eyes. What Yang Kai was concerned about was the helper they had brought. The aura fluctuations coming from this person were almost the same as Ku Wu's, so if Yang Kai was not mistaken, he should be a master from the first-order Dao Source realm. Since appearing, he had not said a word, but when Yang Kai's eyes met his, a terrifying light suddenly burst out from his eagle-like eyes and a pure spiritual energy burst out, transforming into a sharp attack that shot straight towards Yang Kai's knowledge sea like a spinning top. He had directly used a soul secret technique in an attempt to break through Yang Kai's knowledge sea defenses in one fell swoop. Yang Kai flew into a rage. Divine sense attacks were extremely dangerous, and the slightest carelessness could lead to one's death. The other party's style was so cruel that it was obvious he had no intention of holding back. This was completely different from when Yang Kai had beaten Chu Fei. No matter how hard Yang Kai attacked, Chu Fei would only need to recuperate for a bit longer, but if Yang Kai could not withstand this attack, it would not be a problem that could be solved by recuperating. It would definitely become a nightmare that would accompany him for the rest of his life. Anger welling up in Yang Kai's heart, he coldly snorted and madly pushed the strength of his knowledge sea, transforming it into a roaring wave that rushed forward. Faced with a divine sense attack that had locked onto him, Yang Kai could not avoid it at all. His only choice was to meet it head-on. At the same time, in Yang Kai's knowledge sea, the 7-colored soul-warming lotus bloomed with a dazzling 7-colored glow, and the island transformed from the soul-warming lotus began to spin. As it spun, the 7-colored light became more and more dazzling and an inexplicable power flowed into Yang Kai's divine sense, increasing the power of his spiritual energy attacks. An invisible collision broke out between the 2 of them, but the degree of danger was far greater than a real clash of swords. The man's eyes shrank as a look of surprise and horror flashed across the depths of his eyes. Obviously, he had not expected that Yang Kai's divine sense would be able to match his own. In a moment of carelessness, the man suffered a small loss, his head throbbing with pain and his face turning a little pale. Yang Kai was also not in a good state. Such a dangerous collision of divine sense was something he would not have done if he had not been forced to do so. However, he relied on the protection and repair of the soul-warming lotus, so there was no need for him to worry about the consequences. Because even if his divine sense was damaged, the soul-warming lotus could help him repair it. On the other hand, when the man noticed that the opponent he thought he could easily crush had erupted with a strength that could contend with his own, he was surprised and blamed himself for being careless. After suffering a loss, he hurriedly tried to withdraw his divine sense. But how could Yang Kai let him do as he wished? Relying on the fact that his cultivation was higher than his own, this man had used his divine sense to suppress him without saying a word, but now he wanted to withdraw. Too late. Yang Kai endured the severe pain in his head, gritted his teeth, and urged his divine sense to chase after his opponent. The man's complexion finally changed as he stared at Yang Kai with a look of disdain and ridicule. Instead, it was filled with panic. Although he had only fought with Yang Kai once in secret, Yang Kai gave him a ferocious feeling. Not to mention why this third-order Origin King junior brother had a spiritual energy that was comparable to his own, the cruelty he displayed towards himself and his enemy was not something an ordinary person could display. This bastard, does he not want to live anymore? The man's heart was filled with horror. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.